What's going on, you guys? It's Ariel here, the Gamer's Respite. Welcome to another episode. Today, I have on a really awesome guest, Cam Hawkins. Welcome on in, dude. How are you today?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's late at night. The vibes are here. I have a soda. I have friends. Everything is good right now. I'm ready to get into this podcast. Now, it's going to be an interesting episode because this one is going to be focused solely on games journalism, maybe some other tangents and whatnot, but we're going to be talking about articles, our experiences as gaming journalists, and debunking some myths that you guys might have and that we see all the time on, Twitter, now called X, Bluesky, what have you. So to get into it, I actually want to, get to know more about what you do because I know, and I personally, I know already what you do, but the audience, who might not know you might not. So explain a little bit of what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a freelance writer and host. I've written reviews for IGN. I've been on like most of their podcasts. I've been on Kind of Funny, Spawn on Me, and I also have my own podcast. It's Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where it's me and Kevin Kenson, who is a prominent YouTuber, and we basically just like talk about the news and the JRPG and Eastern game world space, as well as like what we've been playing and a topic of the show that involves JRPGs. We release those episodes every Thursday to the public, but we do have a Patreon where you can like subscribe to get the episode a day early. Um, and I'm also writing a book on Kingdom Hearts. I'm co-writing it with Alexa Ray Correa, who wrote the Kingdom Hearts 2 boss fight books for the game. And that's something else that we're working on that's currently in the works.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, it's a lot of busy work, but a lot of stuff that's really just awesome to hear about. Whenever well, just to like kind of jump straight into it, whenever we hear about the term gaming journalist and someone who writes about games, whether it be news, op-eds, whatever the case may be, a lot of people have varying opinions. A lot of people are saying, mostly with the term woke in there somewhere, a lot of people either really, really don't like them, really love them. There's never really any kind of in the middle groundwork that I'm seeing. So what are some of the common misconceptions that you currently see on your end about gaming journalists?
I mean, I think the biggest one and the most like forward-facing one is that games that like a review that is published by an outlet is like everyone that works at that site, that is how they feel about said game. And it's when in reality it is more so that how I like to look at it is that IGN chooses someone to write a review for them to publish on their site that fits the review requirements or the review layout that site has. Because even if a website like IGN has a 1 to 10 review score system, a 7 for IGN could mean something different for than like a 7 for GameSpot or Digital Trends or another website. So like they always try and have like a definition as to like what a 7 means to that website. So like when I write a review, first off, never have been like paid by a developer or a publisher to give the game a certain score. That does not happen. It does not exist. And if it did exist, that website would be shut down immediately, blacklisted, whatever. Like that is unacceptable. um and but basically like once you like write a draft, at least, through my experience at IGN, you write a draft, they give you you give them a score and then they'll like read through the review, they'll obviously do edits, and then they'll be like either like, okay, this is good, like this, like, this reads as this score. It's like, oh, this reads as an 8. Or if I give something higher and they're like, I don't think this yet convinces that this game is this score, and we need to work on making that happen. So like you work with the editors to make it in a place where you're happy with it, and it meets the like criteria, the requirements of that site.
And that's kind of like what we did at Windows Central whenever we were working on reviews. I only ever did 2 reviews for that website, so I'll pull from, I think, one of the most recent examples for the Outlast trials. Whenever we did that, the editors mainly checked for, you know, grammar, flow of the article, you know, how it comes across. It's interesting to hear perspectives from other websites because there wasn't as much collaboration as there was checking to make sure that, okay, your opinion, I want to keep it as your opinion. I want to keep like the soul of what you are saying intact, and making sure that you know, it can go out and, you know, be readable for the public, obviously. And we be like, it's kind of tricky because I don't want to, like, you know, say like NDA stuff or anything like that. How do I want to word this exactly? So whenever I was writing the Outlast Trials review, I was given that key a week in advance, and then we had to play through however much we could get through in that amount of time. I wanted to focus on like the co-op with friends, you know, getting to see if it still had intact what Outlast is. And I feel like a lot of people, whether it's on, you know, any part of the internet, it doesn't have to be exclusively to just Twitter or Bluesky. I feel like they kind of misunderstand the whole goal of writing an article is to showcase our knowledge of the game and our subjective time with it. Because each review is going to have its own baseline opinion, and people, I think, they kind of coat the brush like of the general attitude on a lot of journalists, and they think that, oh well, this journalist said this, they must all think like that, you know?
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, it's not like I wouldn't say that it's a collaborative process at IGN. It's just more like, hey, like, these are the things you need to work on to make it read more like this. They're not like saying, you know, like, hey, do this, do this. They want it to be like your words. They want it to be like your opinion, that type of thing. And so, but yeah, like regarding what you're saying, the thing that's frustrating about that is that, and this is coming from someone who used to be this way, like back when I was in high school, before I got into journalism, games journalism, things like that. You know, a lot of people will just scroll through the article and see what the score is. They don't care about the actual context of what you're saying. And so they'll just see, oh, this game is a 8, like, you know, a 7 out of 10, and like it's a super highly anticipated game, and they're just like, you know, the fucking torches, tiki torches, and pitchforks and shit, and it's I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
Oh no, you can. It's fine.
And yeah, and it's really frustrating because I used to be like that too. Like in the sense of like I would look at a score and be like, oh dang, that's disappointing. Like I would never be like I would never like be upset about that person. It would just like help me, you know, gauge the quality of the game. But also like I also didn't really think of it in the perspective of like, oh, this is a single person's review that IGN just paid to have it published on their website. And that's you know, and that's basically the best way, in my opinion, to look at a review, or really like any like subjective like article. It's just like, oh yeah, this person, whether they're a freelancer or they are full time, they're, you know, the editor or someone in charge, or like on the higher up there, it's just like, hey, you know, we want to pay you to have your review on our website or your article on our website. And yes, it does represent the website, but that doesn't mean that everyone agrees with that opinion. And so, yeah.
So yeah, kind of going off of that, there was it's kind of interesting you say that, because it's like I started reading more of the reviews in depth when I started doing my gaming stuff on YouTube and everything like that. And I thought, you know, what someone's 7 out of 10 is, or what someone's 5 out of 10 is, like it could be a masterpiece for someone else, you know? And anytime I see reviews now and I see people break down the scores, like what if it's a 4 out of 5 or it's a 7 out of 10. I really wonder why people got so hung up on the whole, like they even turned it into a meme of where it's a 7 out of 10. Can you, like, do you know why they turned it into something of where it's kind of common for games to be 7 out of 10s?
I think that 7 out of 10 is just a good median factor of like, hey, this is a good game. It doesn't do anything particularly outstanding. It doesn't do anything particularly bad. It is inoffensive, I guess, if that makes sense. Because yeah, because there have been aspects in the history of the like, oh, the 7 out of 10 too much water, right? The IGN review that came out that like people were just like, this is so stupid. And that wasn't even like the writer that did that. That was the editor that made that decision. And like now that writer, you know, uh has like that thing that is basically following them for the rest of their lives in one capacity, in a capacity, a small and large capacity depending on the person, right? And I think that 7 out of 10 is just like the perfect number for like a lot of sites where it's like, hey, this is a good game, doesn't do anything particularly great, doesn't do anything particularly like bad. It's just solid. And I think, when people think like, oh, like why wouldn't it be a 5 out of 10? And I think that for through my experience, because a lot of the games that I have reviewed have been around the 6 to 7. Like I've only there's only one time I've given a game a 10, and there's only at least like at IGN, through my experience at IGN, I have given like games other scores, like when I was at Dual Shockers, which is where I first started out. But I think that like 7 is just a good number, a good round number that lets people know like, hey, this is a good game. It's not going to do anything particularly outstanding, but like some of people's favorite games are 7 out of 10s. And that's the thing that's so like interesting is that I I was on a panel, or I wasn't on a panel. I went to a panel. I think it was at PAX East or PAX West. I'm pretty sure it was PAX East a few years ago, and it was just like the best 7 out of 10 video games. And like, yeah, like some of like my favorite kind of, I don't even want to say that they're my guilty pleasure games, but games that like definitely like aren't anything higher than a 7, but fucking rule, like
Yeah.
Asura's Wrath.
Oh,
Asura's
nice.
Wrath is an incredible game. It is an incredible game, but it is a 7 out of 10. You know what I mean? Or like X-Men Origins Wolverine. Like, what an incredible game that is definitely a 7 out of 10. And so like it's just one of those things where I think really it is just more of a bigger thing of where people care about numbers. They like having a reference to like a like a quantitative. I hope the word is that's the right word I'm using. Uh, factor to be able to have their brains be able to like understand. Oh, this means this. This means that, and having that reference point because I get asked all the time like kind of like, oh, where do you stand on review scores? And I'm like, it's tough because like I kind of see both sides of the argument. I see people where it's just like, hey, you should just like listen to what this person has to say and kind of come to your own conclusion. Um, because in a like broader scope of things, like everyone's opinion, like people look for different things in video games. Like, uh, what I look for in a JRPG may be something completely different for another person. And so aren't if you were not like on this, if you were into a JRPG for certain reasons, and then someone reviews a JRPG that you were really looking forward to, and they give it a lower score than you were hoping, maybe if you read the review, you'll see like, oh, I wasn't a big fan of this thing, and that's something that you actually really like in JRPGs, and it's like, okay, well maybe I'm going to feel higher on this game than this person after reading that review. It's such a, again, it's all subjective, and there's so much nuance to just how people feel about different games, different genres, that like it's never, yeah, because like I think ultimately I don't think you should really follow a specific website. I think you should follow specific writers that you like. If you find writer like I said this at a panel at Anime Expo last year, is that like Jason Schreier has written one of my favorite reviews I've ever read, and it was on Final Fantasy 15. And then, but on top of that, he's also written one of my least favorite reviews I've ever read, which was on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And so it's just one of those things where it depends on the person. It depends on what they look for, what they dislike in video games. Because I thought like the Final Fantasy 15 review, which is on Kotaku, both these are on Kotaku, by the way, if you're listening, you should definitely read them. It was very nuanced of like, hey, this game has a lot of flaws, but the feeling of like brotherhood and exploring this world and like the things that like the game does so well is just so it's so powerful to me, that like those issues that I take with that are clear as day in that game, like there's no denying that game has problems, like don't really matter to me. And it's just like, oh wow, that's awesome. Like that is kind of like what as someone who was like following that game obsessively, as someone who was following that game back when it was Final Fantasy versus 13, and then coming into Final Fantasy 15, like I was worried that that game was going to be a mess, because it had such a probably one of the most troubled developments in the 21st century, like really, really messy. And yeah, it had the issues, but like, man, just the minute-to-minute gameplay of like traveling around that world, and I loved the characters, even though they, were a little bit unfinished, which they fleshed out a little bit in their respective DLCs. Like, I had such a great time. I love that game so much. I cried at the end of that game. Yeah, and then like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was just like, oh, this character, this girl character, she's showing way too much skin, y'all. Like that was like a big like criticism of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I'm just like,
what?
Why does that matter? Like I understand, I understand why it matters. Like above board. Like I know why that matters,
but also why?
Like, why does that? Yeah, but also why does that matter? Like and so, and I, because I love Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'm one of the people that like notoriously like that game more than the other two, which is an unpopular opinion, like admittedly. But it's just like one of those things, just an example of, hey, you can find writers that you love that also that write reviews you really love, and then reviews that you don't love, and then but then you also get those like elements of like, oh, this thing really matters to them in a video game versus this thing that really doesn't matter. And so you get those aspects that allow you to like kind of come to your own conclusions and decide, oh, I like this writer, I like what they say, even if I don't agree with what they're saying. And that, I think, is like the best thing that you can get out of journalism, is finding the writers that you love and like sticking up with their writing, but also going out of your way to like look for new writers and be like, oh, I really like what this person has to say, and eventually maybe find a new favorite writer. It's very nuanced.
Absolutely. And kind of to bounce off of that, do you think that within reviews, because there's so much within a video game, like if we just take a look at, I don't know, Final Fantasy 16, there's so much nuance, there's so much substance, and there's so much that to put every like single minute detail into a review is almost next to impossible. What do you think is kind of the perfect balance within a review to have? Because I've seen a lot of reviewers, including myself, because like I focus more on the psychology and the story of a video game whenever it comes to my reviews. So do you think that there is a kind of like more substantive to have like differentiating reviews, or do you think there should be more of a guideline of this is how you should write a review?
I definitely think it should be. I think it should be as personable as it can, because one, it makes you stand out. And two, like there are certain games where you can write about things that no one else can. Um, and just like again, just from my own experience, I reviewed Spiritfarer when it came out in 2020, and I played that game shortly after my dad unexpectedly passed away, and that game helped me grieve. Like that game, because that game is about like these characters that are basically in purgatory. They have not like accepted death, and they you have to convince these characters, or like get these characters to learn like, hey, your life is over, we need to move on, like that type of stuff. And uh I didn't have a really great relationship with my dad, so it was one of those things where it made me put a lot of perspective into his life and like his point of view. Because like I think one of the things that I struggle with in general is like in relationships is that like, oh, I think this, I have all this knowledge about this thing, so obviously this person also has that knowledge, and that's not the case. That's just not realistic. And so like you just kind of have to like I just like learned like, damn, what did my dad think about like these different aspects of his life, right? And was he like ready to like move on? I don't know if he died unexpectedly. So I don't know if he was like he was in a place where he thought he was dying or what. I don't know any of that stuff. But it's just like, dang, like was he ready to pass away? Like was he ready to move on? Like it just gave you like all these kind of perspectives that, it was a very personal story, and I reviewed that game highly because of what that game meant to me, and like the way that that game, through its gameplay and its mechanics and stuff like that, was able to do that. And so like I think that's a much more interesting review than having like a bunch of people kind of follow the same guidelines and then just writing their thoughts. That may not be the case for everybody, but I that is what I like when I read reviews, is getting those personal stories where you learn more about the writer while also like learning about this game.
Yeah, I also thank you for sharing that though. That's a really touching story to hear. I'm also sorry about your dad. It's really so wonderful because to hear the difference in opinion in video games, right? Because we have so many different like just human beings who have these just unfiltered thoughts and just a bountiful of different experiences through their life. So being able to share that experience through a review, through a video, whatever the case is, I think that's just gold within itself. Because whenever I hear or even see people on social media saying, well, your view is supposed to be objective, it's not supposed to be an opinion based, and I'm thinking, unless it's news, everything has to do with a subjective opinion. Everything has to do with the fact of where you're driving from your experience. I remember, just to share a small story, like whenever I was playing Death Stranding for the first time, that's when my dad went into the hospital for a heart attack. And that was over 5 years ago. And he's almost turning 82 in April. So, he's doing well, he's fine. But there were things in that moment of where it's kind of interesting how, how much I never questioned death before. I was just like kind of always scared of it. But Death Stranding made me come to terms with the fact of where this is an inevitability. You might as well just be comfortable with experiencing the feelings and going through the emotions. I was writing that review while I was in the waiting room of the hospital, and I was like doing my notes and everything. And I thought, you know what, this is we all have our own beaches. We all have our own lives that we've lived separately. And I feel like bringing that to the table, that was a perspective I had never seen another reviewer do, go about it more psychologically. And that's where reviews really shine. Like you said, like you need to be personable. You need to have kind of this subjective nature whenever it comes to a review. So I think that's key. I don't think a lot of the people who criticize journalists online have a place to talk necessarily, because I don't think they'll understand the formula of how to approach a review, not only from a subjective nature, but the way that in the guidelines that the website has you do as well.
Yeah, and not every time you're going to be able to pull something like very personable to yourself into a review, but like when you have the opportunity to, definitely go for it. Um, so yeah, I go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with you saying, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and so yeah, I just think that you going to the objective thing, yeah, you cannot be objective. You can totally be like for me, I'm not crazy about Souls likes. I love Sekiro, but most of the other ones, I'm just like not like it just doesn't do it for me. But I also totally understand why people like it. Like you are able to separate those two things. So like if I wrote a review for a game like that, like a Souls like, I'm gonna be like, yo, this game isn't really for me, but I understand why people will like it because of these reasons. Um, and so like, but then also those are kind of the more harder reviews to write, right? Where it's just like, are they just gonna complain that like I didn't like the game and then gave it a certain score, even though I said like, oh, I think other people will like it. Because that was just kind of how I felt about recently with Monster Hunter Wilds. I was just like, I like this game, but I think that it's taking these like steps to kind of like mainline a lot of the gameplay experiences for players that aren't like big Monster Hunter fans, and I don't like that. I wish it kind of stuck to the more nuanced, nitty-gritty aspects of Monster Hunter, because I think that's what made it so attractive. But I also recognize that like, yo, Monster Hunter is getting more and more popular. It makes sense that they're doing it. Like I can't be I can't be up I can be upset, but I can understand as well. Like it's not black and white.
No,
Um,
exactly. And that's how I kind of felt with the network test of Night Rain to a degree. Like, I'm a big Souls and Souls like person. So for me, whenever I went into it, I liked that they were doing this co op experience, because for me personally, anyway, from hearing the stories that Miyazaki has told, hearing his interviews, that's the core of what Souls games are, is for it to be around like community oriented, basically. And
mhm.
so when I see this, I forgot what writer it was that brought up this point, but they said it was kind of like Souls like, but make it Fortnite to a degree. And it's not wrong. Like, I don't want this version of Elden Ring to lose the soul and lose the potential of what Elden Ring already has. We're kind of going back to what, a Dark Souls 2 incident, and Dark Souls 2 was fantastic, even though that's kind of like the black sheep of the family.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of it's interesting just like how people kind of engage with those aspects of like being a fan, but then also being like, hey, I'm not huge, like I am cautious, I am wary about this game, or for this, that, and the other. Because I reviewed Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory for Dual Shockers. I think it was like the last review I did for them. And I you know I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts guy. That's my goat. I love Kingdom Hearts. I gave that game a 7.5, and someone commented by posting other review scores from other sites, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's their opinion. This is mine. Like I don't know, I don't know what to tell you. Like, but that is something that stuck with me. It's just like, dude, like people can have different opinions. Like if everyone had the same opinion about everything, the world would be so fucking boring.
it
Like,
it would, like, oh my god, the way I got crucified for my opinion of Fallout 3. I did not like that
Yeah.
game. And so many people like that game and To the Moon, I think were just story wise an atrocity in my opinion. I thought
Really? Okay.
yeah, To the Moon I
Okay.
thought was so just disheartening because spoiler alert by the way for those of you who have not played To the Moon, just FYI, you're basically forcing a person to just trash all of the memories that they've had, whether it's good or bad, and implant these new ideal ones that they've always wanted. And I'm like, the end of your life, you're supposed to relish whether it's good or bad in the memories and just take it for what it is and be just at peace with yourself. And I feel like it sends such a bad message. And people rip me a new one. And I'm thinking it's cute, it's lovely, it's cozy, but the story it wasn't it for me. So it's like, we all have these different opinions, and so many people were also telling me that they only heard positive reviews, and it was nice and refreshing to hear a realistic review on it. I'm like, this is why I do this. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I I think that's perfectly valid. And you are the first person I've heard that wasn't crazy about that story. And like, but I can understand the perspective where you're just like, yo, the story is just too depressing for me, and I don't fuck with it. And like, that's valid, you know. And so I get it. I
yeah.
definitely get it.
Yeah, it was the same kind of when I went to like Grand Theft Auto 5. It was the first Grand Theft Auto game I ever played. And that story, it was kind of a love-hate relationship because I don't know how you feel about the game, but I was in love with the story up until the torture scene, and I was like, nope, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't.
There's
I
just like
can't.
certain content that you just can't,
That I
you just check
can't.
out.
Yeah, it was the same way
Yeah.
that I kind of made up, made myself like my own personal rule that I wouldn't go beyond certain points. Like, what was it? Oh gosh, I think it was, the name is escaping me. Oh, Martha is Dead. I will not play that game within a 10-foot pole. And so many people are like, but you love psychological horror. I'm like, that's not psychological horror. That's unnecessary body horror for no reason. Like, and
Yeah.
that's just me, that's my opinion, but so many people love the body horror, they love all of that kind of stuff. And I think as reviewers, this where goes into my next question: do you think that, to play devil's advocate, we have an obligation to play every single game despite what we might feel about it personally, or do you think that, as always, we should pick and choose what games kind of vibe with us?
I think it depends on the context. Like if you are writing for a website, it is likely that you're either being assigned a game or you are reaching out to see if this game does have someone assigned to review it. And then you may get the opportunity to do so. So, but if you are like on a podcast or if you are like a content creator, that's ultimately up to you. You can choose the games that you are interested in, or not interested in. Because for the longest time, like for I think it was like up until 2022 or 2023, I just felt like a need to have to play every game that came out just so I could have an opinion on it. And in most cases, I was just like, it's good, it's fine. And then I just like, and then I, and then I would like reflect and be like, I could have used that time to play a game that I knew I wanted to play. Like, you have that, the endless backlog, right? Like, there are games where I'm playing this new game and I'm like, oh, I want to play this game, so I know like I have something to contribute. Um, and then and that's not even in a review sense. That's just like social media engagement, like whatever. And I would and then I would finish that game and I would like, okay, that was fine. That was good, And then and then yeah, and then I just kind of reflected at the end of the year, being like, man, there's so many of these games I played. I honestly felt like I could have just gone without playing, and then played other games that I know I want to play, like from my backlog. Because especially as a JRPG guy, like a lot of JRPGs and JRPGs are long. And so I just using that time where I was like, oh, I could have probably played like a few Dragon Quest games or a few Final Fantasy games or other like just general backlog games that I know that I want to play. And that's the thing that I also think that we like, not just like reviewers, but just gamers in general, is that like, don't be afraid to walk away from a game. If a game is not vibing with you, just stop. Like, don't feel like you have this obligation to finish because you spend money on it or whatever. Like, best case, like you walk away from that game, you play some other stuff, and then you like remember, oh yeah, I was playing that game, and you give it another shot, and then maybe it clicks differently for you because like time, where you're at in your life, that also plays a factor into enjoyment for a game. Uh, and so and so it's just one of those things where like play what you like. Don't feel pushed, especially if you're not like a written like reviewer primarily. Like play what you like, and then and do things how you want to do it. Being a content creator or writer, or like even for outlets, is that like there's also really nothing stopping a developer or a publisher from just like blacklisting you. We've kind of seen this with Kotaku, where like the VP at Bethesda at the time, I think his name was Pete Holmes. Like he basically like he didn't say specifics, but he more or less like suggested that Kotaku released a review for one of their games, and he found it to be like bad faith, and so they just like blacklisted Kotaku. And then more recently, Sonic Team blacklisted Digital Trends because they gave Sonic Frontier like a really I know the guy like that wrote the review, Tomas, like he gave it a really low score. I think he gave it like a 3 or something like that. And then like and yeah, but also on top of that, I'm if I remember correctly, Tomas is like not a Sonic game guy. And that is a total like that is another thing. That is another big thing when it comes to reviews. Is just like the reviewer and their knowledge or their like enjoyment of that series. If it's a series, like I wouldn't particularly give someone a review for a Sonic game that doesn't like Sonic games. I'm not saying that they have to love Sonic games, but I think that they have to be knowledgeable about Sonic. And I'm not saying that like in this case, like I don't think Tomas was not knowledgeable. Um, but like if I'm being assigned a review for a game that I don't feel I am qualified, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna be like, I don't think I'm the right person for this. Um, and so like, but then there are other instances where I'm like, yo, I am 100% the person for this. Like I when I reviewed the Dead Cells Return to Castlevania DLC, like I was like, that was my big pitch. Like I am a Dead Cells sicko. I love Dead Cells. Is like my favorite roguelike ever. I want to review this like really badly. Um, and yeah, and it was absolutely fantastic. But then yeah, there are other instances where I did the same thing with Borderlands 3. I was just like, y'all, I'm such a big Borderlands fan, and I like really cannot wait for this game, especially after Borderlands 2, how good Borderlands 2 is. Um, and in the other instance, that game didn't not meet expectations. And so like I kind of had to juggle with like, yeah, this game has like is a huge necessary upgrade in gameplay and like the shooting and like how all that feels night and day compared to um Borderlands 2 or like pre-sequel, which technically came out after. But the story was just such a massive disappointment. And so it's just like how do you juggle that, right? How do you decide like what's a right like a good score for that? Like it was one of the things. It's like does is the disappointment in story outweighing the quality jump in gameplay for me? Like, and for some people it's going to be a lot, some people it's going to be not a lot. It really just depends. I think I ended up settling on like an 8.5. And it's like this is a really good game. This is a really good game. I had a lot of fun with it. But man, that story just did not, it did not meet the admittedly high expectations I had for that game. So there's just like so again, it's just like so many nuances and factors that go into play when reviewing a game or like deciding like who's going to review a game that that have to be that I think should be considered.
Yeah, I understand that completely. It's like for me personally, I'm not a Minecraft person or a racing like car racing person or like even a sports game person. So if I were to review any of those games, it would be so disingenuous for me to do that because I've
Mm.
already have this preset knowledge of like I don't know anything about these games and I've tried them a few times. I do not enjoy them at all whatsoever. It's so interesting. Like I know my other reviewers who would not touch Souls games. Like there's just everyone who has their own preference of whether it be because of difficulty, content of the game, whatever it is, and that's perfectly fine. I just to blacklist I feel an entire company based on one review. I mean, to me, I feel like that's rough, but I don't know how the company's inner workings are with that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, but it's fascinating to me either way to see kind of like the business that goes behind all of it because you never know like what previously has been done or like what other shenanigans there might have been. But yeah, to go into one of the next topics, whenever it comes to certain reviews, now this was more like just of a fun question. If you had to switch places with another type of reviewer, like tech or food or whatever it would be,
Mm.
what other types of reviews would you do if you had to switch places?
Film, 100%. I love film. I went to school initially to pursue film journalism. But like there was definitely a point where I felt like games journalism at the time felt more attainable in the sense of like, oh, I'm like much more there's like a real like gaming community because you play with each other, like you talk about the game, like there's that direct interaction with like the medium, so you have like a bunch of people. It's a lot more communal. And so I was just like being involved with different communities and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this might actually be something that I may be able to do. And so I pursued more on that venture. But I love film. Like the Oscars is my favorite day of the year. I love watching the Oscars. I it was funny. We were on a Q&A, doing the monthly Q&A on our Patreon this month, and it was just kind of like what one of the patrons asked, "What's on your bucket list? Like top 3 or top 5 things?" And I think like number 2 was like it was like meet Tetsuya Nomura, and then the next thing was like I would love to present an Oscar at the Oscars, like just have like just be able to experience like a a night that everyone else experiences at the Oscar, like walk down the red carpet, you attend the show, you go to the Vanity Fair like after party. Like I love I love the Oscars. And I thought it was great. I definitely thought it was a huge step up. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel is like a particularly charismatic person in my opinion. I'm very surprised how he like has had the career that he's had. I'm not trying to like say I don't like the guy. I'm just saying from a appeal standpoint. I never really found him to be super appealing as a entertainer, I guess. And so I just the past like 3 or 4 shows that he's hosted, I'm like, okay, we got Jimmy Kimmel again. But Conan O'Brien's absolutely hilarious. Did you watch the Oscars?
I did. I loved it. I
Yeah.
thought that for me, the moment of the night was whenever Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo performed. The fact that they took her
Mm,
dress and they made it into like the ruby
the
slipper,
Ruby Slip, yeah,
that was everything.
so
I
good.
loved it. I loved
Yeah,
it.
I wanted Ari to win the Oscar really bad because I'm a big Ariana Grande fan. Like, uh, warts and all, I'll take it on the chin. She's definitely been through her shit, but I've been like a day one fan of hers, and so like, and I also think she was just like she's just fantastic in Wicked. But like, unfortunately, Zoe Saldana was just like, oh, like that felt like her. Like how people say like, oh, Martin Scorsese won Best Directing for The Departed as like a legacy award. They're like, we're just gonna give it to him because like he's should have won it for so long now. That's what I mean. Zoe Saldana winning it for Amelia Perez feels like. It's just like I've not seen them. I've not seen the movie. I'm in no way like I think she is a high quality actress for sure. But like for Amelia Perez, like I don't know about that. And so I just wish that it just felt like oh, we're just gonna give this to her because she has done so much at this point, and yeah, and I think that was just like that was very much like a, hey, here's a legacy award, kind of like Jamie Lee Curtis, right? Like I love
Jamie Lee Curtis is incredible.
But Stephanie Hsu should have won it. Like she carried that movie alongside like Michelle Yeoh and Ki Wei Kwan. Like those three carried that movie, but like I would argue Stephanie Hsu was the best acting performance of that movie, and she was nominated, which is awesome, but she should have won. And that's like that's the thing where I'm just like, getting Jamie Lee Curtis beating her out for that. I was just like, I agree. I think you should have an Oscar, but not for this, not for this. And so
an Oscar for Freaky Friday, though. I mean, you know, that was one of her best movies.
Yo, Freakier Friday is coming out this year. I cannot wait.
I'm so excited.
I genuinely cannot wait.
All the millennials are now cheering.
Yeah, no, 100%. Or even like, have you watched The Bear?
I have not, no, but I've heard it. Okay. I've seen clips of it, and it looks fantastic.
So, like, I like The Bear. I'm not as high on it as most other people. I think it's still very good. But Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and she is absolute. Like, that was like, if this was a movie, you got the fucking Oscar, like, type quality acting. Like, she's so good in it. And so, yeah, that's just like a good example of just like, yeah, she definitely has the chops to win an Oscar. It's just, I just don't think that was the right call. But anyway, long story short, I love talking about film like just as much as I like talking about games, but I also like, it's also kind of a struggle just because games take up so much time. Like I also like have not, at least in recent years, I have not put in as much time as I would like to go to catch up on movies, like stay up to date with movies. And so yeah, and that, so I hope that 2025 is the year where I can like get a lot back more into the movie space. I'm not saying like I'm gonna write stuff, but just having a voice there is nice.
Yeah, and also like it's interesting that you mentioned that because I've grown up around just a very heavy duty like film centered family of where anytime a new movie came out, if it were something like, especially when I was younger, if something that like we could all watch together as a family, we were there. And now we do it for horror movies. Like I have not yet seen Longlegs. I am ready to see that at some point because it looks so good.
Yeah, I'm not a horror guy. Game, movie, otherwise. I think like there's only like 2 horror movies of like recent memory that I was just like, this is incredible, or 3. This is incredible, and it didn't really scare me like I thought it would. And that's Hereditary, absolutely incredible. Get Out, absolutely incredible.
That was good, yeah.
And the first Conjuring. The first Conjuring was so good.
That was fantastic, yeah.
And then I watched the second one in theaters, and I was terrified. Like I was just like, this is what, like this was like my worry. I was worried. I was like, I wonder if, like, because The Conjuring didn't scare me. I was like, so I wonder if Conjuring 2 is gonna scare me. But I was like, I had to go in the movie and find out. And I saw it with a bunch of friends, and I was like, you know, again, I am a scaredy cat. Like I am scared when I watch horror movies, and so I was like freaking out, jumping around, and people were like, you know, my friends that like normally watch horror movies were turning around, looking at me as if like what just happened wasn't scary, and I'm like, no, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
It's so interesting though, because whenever before, just to touch on something about before about Zoe, it's so interesting because when I was watching the Oscars, I'm like thinking to myself, I know her from somewhere, and I felt so bad because I don't watch a lot of her movies. I'm like, congratulations, I'm so happy that she won. But the one movie that I remember her from, and that she had left a mark on my brain because of her amazing acting, was from Crossroads with Britney Spears.
I saw a lot of people post like, yay, she won for Crossroads. Like,
oh gosh,
funny.
no. It's just like, I felt so bad because one of my friends was like, Ariel, she won. I'm like, wait, what? And I was like, I had no idea who it was at the time. I was like, oh yeah, the one from Crossroads. I know her. She's awesome. and that shows my ignorance, right? Whenever it comes to film and TV, because like there are certain TV shows like Pretty Little Liars, absolutely iconic. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, iconic. So I will stick with those shows, but more recently now, unfortunately, I've fallen off of movies and TV entirely. The one show,
Man.
yeah, the one show that I think should win every award is The Blacklist, hands down.
That's the one with fuck, James Spader, right? Yes.
Yeah,
I was
he's
like, oh,
incredible.
Robert California, what's his name?
He's incredible. I love it. That
You
just that opening scene of where he just kneels down, drops the briefcase. I'm like, this is already iconic. I can tell.
I've heard that show's really good, and I want to watch it eventually. But you need to girl, there's so much good television right now. There's so much good, like, you need to watch Severance. Like, literally, like, whatever you're watching, stop watching it. Like, and watch Severance, because Severance, no. I'm dead serious when I say that Severance might end up being the best television show ever made. Like,
That
this
good.
is like this is generational television that's happening right now. This is like, I don't know, like, how much engage with it, but like, 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 just like those shows that, like, when they come out, just like, it's not even like every week everyone's talking about it. It is like conspiracy board. Everyone's just like, oh, this happened because this is gonna
Yeah.
happen. Like, kind of like
Oh, so
Breaking
like
Bad. Like when
Game
Breaking
of
Bad
Thrones,
was
that kind of thing.
Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
100%. Like, Severance is that currently, where like
I
it
need
is
to
just
look
like
up where to watch it then, because
it's on Apple TV. It's on Apple TV.
okay, perfect.
And it's like it's my friend Jesse Vitelli, like, kind of pitched it perfectly. It's like a mystery box show where, like, every episode, like, it's planting all these seeds. There's so much foreshadowing where if you, like, go back and watch, they're like, it is very much a show that, like, they know exactly what they want the story to be. They're not going to expand upon it. Like, even if it's successful, it's going to be like, hey, like, it's on season 2 right now. It might be 3 seasons and it's over. Like, but it's the perfect 3 seasons of television ever. And it's so good because it's just one of those shows where, like, a new episode will drop and then your entire timeline will be like not spoilers, but like Severance stuff and people talking about that show. And again, there have been other shows that are really, really good of recent years, like Succession. That's on Max, and that's also like a must-watch show. It's only 4 seasons, and it's basically a show about, think of like the richest business family ever, like in America. And their dad, who's again this huge business guy, has a heart attack, and they're basically being told, like, he's probably gonna die. And then he has his 3 kids that all work in the business in some way, or like are involved closely to the business in some way, and they're all trying to figure out who is going to be the next one in charge.
Oh, that's a good plot.
And it's just, and it's it is super drama, super well done writing. Like, it's incredible. It's incredible. And there are like certain things that like happened in that show that, like, it's so hard. It's so hard to I want to talk about it because
Yeah,
I
but
want
not
to
spoil it.
sell you on it, but I don't want to spoil you on it too. But there are like moments that like happened in that show that, like, press outlets, like, mainstream, like Los Angeles Times, New York Times, like like implemented as like front page news in the real life. Like, it was that kind of, it had that kind of effect on it. It's so good, Ariel. Like, those 2 shows, Severance and Succession, like, those should be like your next 2 shows to watch.
I need to
they're
watch them.
just that good.
Yeah.
They're just that good.
Okay, so wait now, but after I say what I'm going to say next, I'm going to go into an interesting topic. So the question I asked you before of like what other media would you be in besides gaming journalism if you had the choice, my pick for myself would be fashion. I'm a fashionista,
Okay.
love fashion. it is one of my ride or die things because from the time I was a kid, I was spending more time in Manhattan near the fashion district with my mom, near going where she needed to work, than I was spending time in New Jersey. And it's so weird to me because like she and I would get a cup of coffee, we would go into Manhattan, and then it would just be like 5 hours every single day for her work, and I would be in either Chinatown or the fashion district.
Yeah, the first off, I chuckled because you're. I mean, for you it might be all the time, but for me, not. You know, it's kind of coming in and out. But like the Jersey accent, a cup of coffee.
Oh my
I was just
God.
like, oh, there it is. Um, yeah, like I can totally see that. Like if I lived in New York, because that was the thing. Again, not trying to go on a huge tangent, but like it was one of those things where it was where we were asked on our Q&A like what if you weren't doing this and you could like kind of like redo everything, like what would you have put, like what would you kind of put your all your marbles into? And for me, 100% acting. Like if, and especially if I lived in New York, I'd be like, oh my God, I want to be a Broadway actor. Like I want to, like, you know, I love I've always loved entertaining because I grew up like throughout school I was a musician,
Oh, same.
but like yeah, but man, I could not imagine like growing up in like New Jersey where you're just like so accessible to like New York because yeah, I went to New York for the first time like last October,
Oh, wow.
and man, I was like grinning ear to ear walking past like all the Broadway theaters and stuff like that. But anyway, but I also I'm also one of those guys that weirdly loves fashion. Like I do not care about me being dressed up nice unless it's like I'm one of those people that like I'm either in sweatpants or like sweat shorts and
I
like
feel
just
that.
baggy ass clothes, like don't give a fuck, or I try to be the best look, like the best dress in the room. There's no in between. It's just that or the other. And so but like I love uh I love like looking at like different fashion designs and stuff like that too. I don't know why, like, but it's just like, oh man, like this is something that I really am. I shouldn't be this passionate about it, but I am.
It's
Like I
something
love,
that speaks to
like
you, you know?
yeah, like the Oscars. I'm just like, oh, I love looking at their different outfits and stuff like that. I'm not like knowledgeable about like, oh, who designed this, who designed that, but I'm just like, that's cool, that's not, that's cool.
See,
So
I watch the Oscars for the fashion. Like when I was
yeah.
there, I was glued to TV. I was like, whoever did Cynthia Erivo's dress needs a fucking
Mm.
raise. Like they need
Ariana's dress was so good.
so good. The way that they're perfectly implementing for part two, that made me so happy because like so many dresses were well done, but I feel like now designers are taking more of the approach of less is more, and I love them that they're going back to the old Hollywood look, that they're trying to dress them classier. They're trying to give them more of like things that are like more figure fitting instead of just showing skin everywhere, which isn't a problem, but I like that things are going more to a classier edge, you know?
Yeah. No, definitely. I totally get that.
It's interesting that you brought up of where like what would you be doing like if you weren't a writer or anything. And for me it's going I went to school for psychology, so I
Mhm.
would probably go into neuroscience.
Okay.
I absolutely love the brain. I love, you know, figuring out what makes people tick. That sounds very Joker, I know. But it's so strange to me to whenever I see people react so differently to like the exact same thing. Like to a meme, for example, someone might laugh, another person might cry, another person might, you know, like get really pissed off or something. So I
Mhm.
see like just, I just love like how the brain works. So it's fun.
I have a question. And are you a licensed therapist? Are you a, or
No,
is that
not
something that
yet.
you're working on? Or
Something
okay, it's still something you're
something
working on?
I was about to work on, but school cost way too much. But yeah,
Cool.
I can see
Yeah,
myself
I
just
mean,
telling people, how do you feel about that?
yeah, I mean, I've been in Reno since 2013, so 12 years now. I've wanted to get the fuck out for a while, but like it's just one of those like when you can't hold on to a fucking job, like I was on the precipice of like of moving of moving to like either New York because a lot of my friends live in New York or LA, and then I lost my job and I'm like, well, who knows when I'm going to be able to do that now again? You know what I mean? And so, but like also, glad I did it before I moved, because that would have been way worse if I made a move and then it's like, hell yeah, you don't have a job now. So, and you're in this brand new place, this, and I love big cities. I grew up in Vegas. I have to live, like, Reno is the smallest city I could live in. Like and it's not even that small, but it's like, I love the organized chaos of big cities.
Oh, same. Yeah,
And
that's
so,
how I feel right now. Because like living in like the countryside, it's beautiful and it's quiet, but also it's way too quiet. Like
yeah,
I
it's
love that kind
boring.
of in between of where it's like loud, you hear people talking, you hear like the hustle and bustle, but right now instead of cops and people, I hear coyotes.
Yeah, I mean, I live basically on a mountain currently, which is like a small mountain or small hill that goes into the city, and the coyotes are out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've seen coyotes just walk like at night. They're just walking on the sidewalk, like in the city. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, even right before the winter, bears like to come in here and they'll like sniff around the garbage and everything. And I shit you not, it was my first encounter with a bear, and I was so scared.
Was it a
Cam,
black bear or a brown bear?
it was a brown bear and it was an older one. It had like the whitish kind of nose. Oh, it was so cute, but also my toxic trait is thinking that I can go up and pet it.
No, yeah, like
Yeah.
a black bear, you'd be fine, but a brown bear, that's when you're like, gotta
Get
step
out of here.
away, gotta step,
Well,
you
I
know.
was inside and I was like peeking out because the window of the bathroom is like facing directly near the garbage. So when I was looking out and I was seeing the like he was opening the hatch door of it, and I yelled out, I was like, "Dad, there's a bear!" And he like the bear looked right at me, and I felt my entire body go cold. I was like, "Get me out of here,
Reasonable.
please! Please get me out
Yeah,
of here!"
no, yeah, reasonable. If that was me, I would have let you handle that situation better than me. I would have ran, which I shouldn't have, and like, oh, nope,
You see, but
nope.
that's the thing. I was inside the house and I couldn't run. I was frozen still, even though I was safe.
Oh, okay, yeah, you were inside because I thought you were outside. I was like,
Yeah,
oh my
no,
god, I
no, no,
don't know
no,
how
no.
you'd handle that. So,
Oh, yeah, it's getting to that season right now where it's getting just warm enough that I know that certain creatures I don't want to exist are going to start making their way outside, and that's going to be interesting. But I know we got in a big tangents and everything like that.
no, that's all good.
But yeah, it's so fascinating to hear like people in the industry who what they would have done other than what their current job is now, because originally, like, I mean, God, when I was a kid I wanted to be a lawyer, and now I'm looking at everything that's corrupt and wrong with law, and I'm just like, oh, thank God I didn't go into that degree.
Yeah,
you know
that's fair.
so
Totally fair.
yeah. But for the next question that I had, it's more kind of like fun little rapid fire questions. If you were
Sure.
to have a pizza party with any 5 characters from a video game, who would you be and who would you be? Who would the characters be and what pizza would you have?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think I would just like pick my like 5 favorite like characters. I don't know if I would go that far, but like, um, so first off, even though it's not my favorite Pokemon, second favorite, gotta go with Totodile.
Oh,
Gotta have my
nice.
boy Totodile. Um, you know, if I had opportunity to just have my boy Totodile there, I would pick Totodile. Um, Riku from Kingdom Hearts because that's my homie, that's my goat. Olivier from the Trail series. That he's a very charming bard. Um, Voiced by Matt Mercer. So, you know, very charming guy. Uh, After that, hmm. Oof. Trying to think about other. I mean, they don't have to eat the pizza, right?
Yeah, they could just stare longingly at it.
I'd probably pick Legion from Mass Effect because I just would love to have a conversation with Legion. I thought Legion was just like one of the the like Legion is my favorite Mass Effect character, and I think that just like the kind of philosophical questions and just like I love talking about philosophical stuff. So just like being able to like talk to and a robot AI that is that has what was it, self-awareness, like that'd be an interesting conversation to have.
Which,
And
fun
then
fact, by the way, I'm playing Mass Effect 1 for the first time, actually, currently.
Mass Effect 2 is my third favorite game of all time. It is, I don't think a better game has come out since Mass Effect 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think,
I'm
yeah,
excited to
yeah.
see that.
I do not think a better game has come out since Mass Effect 2. There's really nothing like it. People haven't even attempted to try and do the things that that game has done. Mass Effect 1 is still great. It definitely has more RPG elements. Especially like once you beat that game, definitely like look into like kind of the things that were possible if you had the right things in line, because there's one particular thing about that game that you can do that is really crazy,
Oh,
really
okay.
cool. That but yeah, so Legion, and then I'm trying to think about who else. Oh, Tifa. Just gotta have my girl Tifa there.
Tifa,
That's
yes.
my goat waifu. So have to have Tifa there. And then pizza party. Does it have to be one pizza? You can only choose one.
Yeah, let's go for as many as you want to, because I know Legion's going to probably either stare at the pizza or have all of them.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, that's Totodile for sure. I want to be, we got to have a vegan option. We got to have the options, right? Vegan, vegetarian. If you want like an all meat version, and then for me, I'm gonna have my own personal, like I gotta have my own personal, like, which is basically just like a veggie pizza, like onions, mushrooms, peppers, and then some garlic dipping sauce,
Oh,
and then I'm
nice.
good. And then I'm
Oh
good.
my god. Oh, let's
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah.
Now I gotta think of one. Okay, absolutely Jill Valentine, because
Okay,
she's everything. Oh my gosh, V from Cyberpunk.
okay.
Mm, shit.
Gotta have your chum with you.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm trying to. Oh, Artorias from Dark Souls 1 remastered.
I don't know
Because
who that is. I don't know that one. That
he
one's
is going to cut the cake with the cut the pizza with the massive sword. Sam from Death Stranding. Let's see who's gonna be last. I'm trying to think. Oh Lord, there's so many characters. Oh, Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh man. Like I just said that Mass Effect 2 is like there hasn't been a better game since. Red Dead 2 is the closest. Red Dead 2 is like one of the best games ever made. I
It's just
love that game so much.
it's like a running joke in my community of whenever I see an animal that I can name, I name it if it's a horse especially.
Arthur? You name it Arthur?
Nope, I name it Little Nene.
Oh, little Nan. That's actually really funny.
Dropping the
Little
sickest piece
Nene.
since 1992. And it was so funny for me because it's just like one of my community members was like, give it a rap name. I want your horse to have a rap name. Is why to this day I feel like is one of the best stories that Rockstar has ever done.
Yeah. I like I'm not you talked about GTA 5 earlier. I'm not a big Rockstar guy. I don't really care about GTA, the appeal for it. Like when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to like get 5 stars or whatever." Like that was fun. But then once I like got older, I was just like, "This is not fun for me anymore." But I love Red Dead. I love Red Dead 2. I love LA Noire. Not Rockstar developed, but LA Noire is one of my favorite games of all time as well.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
yeah, if you like Red Dead, you should definitely play LA Noire.
I have
Um,
actually, and it's interesting that you say that because I did not
oh,
like
okay.
that game at all.
Really? Oh,
Yep.
I loved it. I loved it.
The one thing I loved about it was the facial tracking and the way that you could do some of the interrogation choices that I thought was brilliant that they did.
I like that. I like that game because it. Well, one, I just like love the general gameplay of it all and everything, but like I also love how tragic the ending of that game is.
Yeah, that was
Um,
heavy.
Yeah, it's one of those games where, like, obviously, like, when we play Red Dead 2, like, spoilers. I don't know why I need to say it, but when we play Red Dead 2, you know Arthur's gonna die, one way or another, because it's a prequel, and John Marston's in the game. Um, and so, like, obviously that tragedy, like, that is a tragedy. Like, that is sad, like, once you fall in love with Arthur and, like, love his character and stuff like that. But, like, you don't know what's gonna happen at the end of L.A. Noire. And it's there's some real tragic stuff, and they do make some, like, it's a very, it made me, like, kind of put into perspective, kind of like we were talking about, like, the law, and it's just like, oh, like, these flawed characters, but then also, like, that you still, like, want to, like, root for, and you want to do a good job, right? But then also, like, oh, there are some, like, really actual bad cops, and, like, kind of where they end up at the end of the game is, it just, like, adds to the tragedy. It's like, it's a very interesting like, story about that type of stuff. So
And it also
um
brings like the historicity of the time too. I feel like
yeah.
to a really interesting point because there's a lot of games that do like slurs and all that kind of stuff. They do it very poorly. But then there are games I will give credit to LA Noir that does it very well, of where they show, hey, this is the time period that this was in. This is unfortunately the stuff that was being hurled around. So they put it into a perspective of a game, and I feel like much like a film like a noir, it was carried out with elegance, and it was carried out in such a way of where it made players kind of like aware of the history of the time.
Yeah, for sure. What were we talking about before Rockstar? Because we definitely went on a tangent, and now
Oh,
we
the pizza.
forgot. The
Yeah,
pizza, yes,
the
yes. So
pizza party.
Arthur Morgan, pizza party.
Yeah, so so for my pizza, I'm going to get canceled for this take right now. Obviously, like you
Anchovies?
said, no, I'm allergic to fish.
Okay,
Thank
good.
God.
Okay, okay,
So,
good. Okay, good, 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 good.
so obviously, vegan option, vegetarian. If you want to have plain, have plain. Mine would personally be pepperoni. No, no, not pepperoni. A pineapple,
Um,
broccoli, and mushroom.
wow, that is an insane combination. But here's the thing: I love pineapple. I just don't like it on pizza. Like, I don't think you're a bad person for liking it on pizza. Like, I don't think it. I wouldn't put it on my pizza. I don't think it
Exactly.
belongs on pizza.
You would just shoot me away. No,
But
I'm just joking.
but I'm also like, do you? Like, I'm not gonna judge you that you put pineapple on your pizza
Yeah, exactly. And
in
I
a real
mean,
way.
I can't imagine the person that puts anchovies and pineapple on their pizza. That's a new level.
Uh,
That's a
yeah,
new
that
level of
that
masochism.
that yeah, that's crazy.
Oh.
Masochism. That's funny.
I do
Yeah.
have to ask though, because I don't know why I'm just thinking of this now, but before in the segment when we were talking about, film and movies, I have to ask, what are your top three films that you think are absolutely god tier?
Oh, God tier. I mean, it. So God tier, I think, is different, I guess, than my top three favorite films. Would you say, like, or
Yeah, I
would you
would
just?
think so because one has to do with an objective and another has to do with personal preference.
Damn, that's hard. Um, that's really. I think of recent memory. I'm not gonna say of all time. Oh, actually, I will say one. I do think there's one movie I've seen that is basically perfect, and that's 12 Angry Men. That is a
Oh, it's
perfect
so
movie.
good. Oh my God, that was such an excellent movie. We actually did what was it? Oh gosh, a theater project in a college for that. And it
Mm.
was so, like, such a well done movie of where you
It's
hit everything on the head.
it's timeless. It will always be relevant. It will always be relevant. So I do think that is, that's not even in my top 10 favorite films, but it is the best film ever made, in my opinion. Um, oh man. Uh, Other two, like, just of recent memory. Um, I think I think Moonlight is, like, an absolute masterpiece. I I I still remember that year that it came out, and, like, and I love musicals. I didn't really like La La Land, and I know that people absolutely adored that movie. Like they were like, this is one of the greatest movies of like the past like 30 years or whatever, and like Hollywood ate that movie up. Sure, like I think the music's good. I don't think the story's super interesting. I don't think the characters were super interesting. I thought this like the narrative was pretty like flawed. Um, but but like everyone ate that movie up, and I'm just like, y'all, Moonlight, that is the movie of the year, y'all. That is like with a bullet. And and you know, when that whole fiasco where they announced La La Land was the winner, but it was actually Moonlight.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was like everyone in the room, because I was at like an Oscar thing. Everyone in the room was just like devastated, and then there's me being like, freaking out, like yes. And none of them watched Moonlight, so they couldn't like be mad at me about it. I'm like, y'all, you just need to watch Moonlight. So that movie was particularly like incredible. Um, and then and then after like other, man, it's kind of like a toss up of like just like kind of my recent like films that I really were blown away with. Uh, Whiplash is really incredible.
Yeah.
And Birdman. Birdman was also really. Oh, the entire movie. It is basically a one shot.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
it's awesome. I think there's one cut in the entire, or there's technically like two cuts because you have to cut back, but like I think there's two cuts in the entire
how do they
film.
Do that? I mean, it makes the video editor's job a lot easier.
I mean, like obviously it's not like a one shot, but like they made it work, and it's really really good.
I need to see that.
Oh, it's so good, and it's about like Broadway and like the criticisms of like Broadway plays, and like it's really good. But yeah, and then like you know, just to like because I wanna throw out some just general favorite movies. Toy Story is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, nice.
I love that movie so much. The Dark Knight, Perks of Being a Wallflower. I don't know if you've seen Perks of Being a Wallflower,
yes, I love it.
I don't know a movie I cried harder watching, like just absolutely devastated at the end of that movie. Hot Fuzz is like the best comedy ever made, in my opinion. Also Tropic Thunder. Just like I've had like recent conversations with like a lot of my like white friends being like, isn't Tropic Thunder like super problematic? I'm like, yes, that is the point of the movie.
Yeah, that's what they tried to do.
And I'm just like that movie is absolutely fucking hilarious. And they're just kind of like, I don't agree with this. And then one of my other friends, who was also a person of color, was just like, yeah, like Tropic Thunder is amazing. And then all the white people, this was just like,
they're like, I don't know whether or not to laugh or not.
Yeah, they're just like, I want to be an ally, but also like y'all are saying some out of pocket shit, and I'm like, no, it's not out of pocket. It's just really, really fucking good. Now, really, like notoriously hated or like bad, you know, people think this movie is bad. That I think, I'm not even saying it's a guilty pleasure movie. I think that people are just wrong and just don't get it. But my in that movie is Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat, starring Mike Myers.
Oh my god.
That movie is fucking hilarious. And if you don't think that movie's fucking hilarious, you don't get comedy. You don't get humor. Because that movie is so fucking funny. Oh, Shaun of the Dead is amazing. I think that a lot of people feel that way. But yeah, Dr. Seuss's Cat in the Hat has like a 30-something on Metacritic. And I'm like, nah, dog, that movie is amazing, and I love it.
There's a movie that I love that is critically acclaimed as just a cringe fest. I don't give a shit. It's so good. It's Morbius. I will morb out all the time. All right, like it's so good. Like that film just scratches every movie itch in my brain. Like, does it accurately represent the comics? No. Does it have Jared Leto in it? Yes. Is he the main attraction? Of course. But it is one of those guilty pleasure movies of where it has awful acting, terrible storytelling, but it's a fun time.
it's really interesting kind of learning about, like, I know that actors, how do I explain this? As as like, when it's your job to be an actor, you would think that they would also kind of follow the news around Hollywood and like the kind of trends and like trends of like successes or failures, right? Because like I'm a huge like Doctor Who is my favorite show ever, and so like because we're talking about Morbius, Matt Smith is the 11th Doctor, and so I was excited. Like I was just like I saw like, oh, Matt Smith is going to be in a new MC like Marvel movie. I'm like, yes, and then it's like, oh, it's one of the Sony ones. I'm like, no, because just like it has uh um a history of like being terrible movies, like not even like, oh, that wasn't super great, bad movies. And so when I found out he was going to be in Morbius, I was like, because like I want him to be in something. I'm not saying that because he's in one movie that's bad, he can't be in like an MCU movie in the future. But like if I was an actor, I might be like, do another Marvel movie or another superhero movie because this one was so terrible. But it's also interesting to me that like these people don't know these things before they make these decisions. Like their agent doesn't say like, hey, like, you know, they want you in this Marvel movie or in this Marvel movie, but it's the bad Marvel movies. Like, wouldn't your agent know that stuff, right? Or wouldn't you as an actor know this stuff? Because he like said that he reached out to Karen Gillan because Karen Gillan is Nebula in Guardians. And he's like, should I do this? Like, you know, that type of thing. And she's like, yeah, you should do this. Like, Marvel's great. And it's just like, MCU is great, not the Sony stuff. And so it's just like one of those things where like it was just like but again, as an actor, would you not know this? Would you not like know the yeah? And that's the thing that's kind of bizarre to me about that. But what's also funny is that like Matt Smith has like zero social media. He is absolutely ignorant on anything that happens on social media. So like when he when he was at a some sort of panel after Morbius came out, someone yelled out, "It's Morbin time" to him. And he had no idea what was going on. He's like, "It's what?" he's like, "It's what?" And it's just so funny that like when like these actors with no social media are just randomly assaulted with these like internet quips and trends that they have no idea existed because they don't have social media. And that was just like a really, when you mentioned Morbius, I was like, I gotta talk about this because it's just so funny.
For good reason too. I mean, look at the way that a lot of the actors are treated on social media. Makes complete sense. You know, whenever you talked about your favorites, I like all of mine started coming to my head. I have to say, like, my first one, Oppenheimer. Absolutely fucking fantastic. Incredible.
Yes.
What was the other one? Secret Window with Johnny Depp. Fantastic movie. Really good.
Okay.
And the third one, it's a toss-up between The Dark Knight and The Black Swan. Because those two are
I'm so really glad good. You said Black Swan. Like, Black Swan so is actually like my 5th favorite movie. Like that is like after Hot Fuzz. I mentioned Tropic Thunder, but like Black Swan, that was a movie. That was like the first movie I've ever seen where I felt the need, I didn't do it, but I felt the want to stand up and applaud. Like literally like stand up out of my seat and be like, wow, what an incredible like masterpiece. And like, you know, that game, that movie does get a lot of criticisms because it's like very, very comparable to a very popular anime film called Perfect Blue. But like, I don't care. I'm like, okay, well, this is still fucking amazing. You know what I mean? And so I actually think, funny enough, like when E3, like, I think it was like the last E3, Darren Aronofsky was on a panel with Jeff Keighley and Hideo Kojima, and I actually brought my copy of Black Swan for him to sign because I was just like, please sign this, sir. I love this movie. I still have it somewhere. I like definitely not within like, oh, let me grab it to show you really quick. But I definitely have it. And Yeah, he's because apparently he like recently kind of got more into the game space. I mean, recently as in like 5 to 7 years ago. But
Oh wow.
yeah, so I love Darren Aronofsky. Like that is a director that like I will see any film that he makes. I actually haven't seen The Whale yet, but I need to. I want to. But I liked Mother. I know Mother was a super divisive movie when that came out.
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
if you watched it.
absolutely. Yeah, I've
Okay,
seen
yeah,
parts of it.
yeah. I thought Mother was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like hearing the opinions of movies back and forth because, like, so many people don't like psychological horror. Like for me, I'm not a big fan of body horror. Besides the Saw movies, like I absolutely love the Saw movies. For me, like those are movies that I will always just like, especially the first two. I love them so much. Someone so rudely told me to watch The Human Centipede. I hate them for
Oh
it.
no,
I saw it
no!
when I was in college for the first time, and I was mortified.
Devastated. Yeah,
And you know what was even worse though? Cam, I they had me watch it in public.
oh no.
And we were in like the like not it wasn't like a cafeteria, it was more like a like not even a cafe. What was it? It's like a like just a food out eatery place that's connected to the college. And we were in one of the booths and they pulled it up on their laptop. They're like, Ariel, we want to show you this really cool movie. And we sat down and I don't know how they were eating while that movie was going on, but I lost my appetite very quickly.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. First off, yo, I'm so sorry about that. But second off, like, did you kind of get the fill in when you hear the name of the movie being the Human Centipede? Like,
Not then. I thought it was kind of going to be like a metaphor for something. I didn't know that it was going to be literal.
Oh. I'm still gonna say like 5% is your fault,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
you're still yeah, you still went through some trauma, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, but you know what? It's absolutely 100% my fault for actually going out to research the second movie to see if that was any better. So,
Yeah, that's on you. That's
yeah,
on
it
you.
is. Fully, absolutely, 100%. And it's so interesting because it's like, I can't imagine what the director must have been thinking. It's like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I'm like, what? What in Seven Shades of Hell are you doing?
Super popular movies. Super popular. Yeah, I don't.
With a certain crowd, yes. It's
People like fucked up shit. You know what I mean? It's
all I want to do is go up and ask them, "Have you been hugged recently?" Like that's all I want to do.
yeesh.
No, but it's so interesting talking about movies, and this is why I love psychology because getting to see like, oh, that's actually where I drew my line, by the way, with body horror and why I won't play certain games that have that kind of stuff because it just goes into the morbid territory of gory for no damn reason at all. If someone tells me anymore that there is torture or any body horror, I'm like, I'm not reviewing that. I'm just not doing it. So like, I got, it was so funny because I posted that on Twitter, speaking of reviews, when I was doing my review for Grand Theft Auto 5, saying that I actually like after the torture scene in Grand Theft Auto 5 was done, I sat back in my chair and I cried. I was so greatly impacted by that in a negative way. And people were calling me a pussy left, right, and center.
Yeah, that's the internet for you.
Well, that's the one thing I don't understand. One of the next topics I actually wanted to discuss with you. Why is it, in your opinion, do you think that people think that you need to think a certain way about a game in order to review it? Like in order to review a game, you must agree or have like a certain consensus in order to be able to talk about this. Like you don't get to have an opinion unless you think it like this,
I mean, part of it is just that they fundamentally just don't understand what a review is. But second, so it's just like I think people just like want to be right. People just want to, uh, people don't like being wrong. People don't like to admit to being wrong. I remember when No Man's Sky came out, and my roommate, he was super excited for it, and he doesn't like he's definitely a gamer, but he doesn't follow the game news like I do, and I'm like, dude, I would reserve your expectations based off of what I'm hearing about this game. And he's just like, oh no, it's gonna be good, it's gonna be good. and he played the game, and I'm just like, and I knew, like I knew that it wasn't what it was promised to be. And I was like, so how's No Man's Sky? And he's just like, it's good. I'm enjoying it. I'm just like, I'm just like waiting for him to just like admit that it did not meet the expectations that he had. And then eventually he said like, yeah, so I think I'm done with No Man's Sky. And I'm like, just nodding at him. I'm just like, yep, mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, you were right. Like what people are saying is true. It's just like, yep, yep. And you just have, just people just don't like being wrong. Uh, People don't like being wrong, and people like being haters too. Like it's one of those things, especially like it's just like kind of like a general, because once you get through the review aspect of it, right, it goes into just kind of like uh the reputation of it all, right? As someone who's a big Kingdom Hearts fan, like, and someone who played it since the beginning, hearing people ignorantly talking shit about Kingdom Hearts is the most like, it's like just numbing at this point. It's just like, yeah, I totally haven't heard any of these things that you're saying before from another person who also did not play these games and actually don't know what they're talking about. And so it's just one of those things where you have to, like, it, those people, like, they're either always going to be that way, or they're, eventually they'll come to like learn these things through hearing feedback from people that are knowledgeable about it in good faith. uh it's really like up to them, and it gets harder nowadays because there's like so much misinformation, where I don't want to get political, but and even then we're on the same side of the political spectrum, but like it's kind of like you can kind of compare it to like a lot of people that voted for Trump, is that like they didn't they don't do the research. They kind of just like blindly like come to their own conclusions. But then like for the people that are willing to like hear out the other perspectives and like hear the actual factual information on things, they're like, oh shit, like maybe I was wrong about this, or maybe I was wrong about that, and allows them to see new perspectives. And because like yeah, and I think in a lot of cases, just at the end of the day, people don't want a game that they're super excited for to not meet expectations.
Right. I mean, look what happened with Cyberpunk. I mean,
Oh,
that's a
that was a fucking disaster. Yeah, then
but
that was like that was more on the publish the the developers and the publisher, more than like, I think that's a very specific situation where like they just like they dropped the ball in a way that's like beyond like game criticism. It's just like, no, y'all just did not release this game in a playable state, or in a state that is acceptable for a studio of your caliber, because that is a whole other type of thing, right? It's just like you have earned this goodwill through like your previous projects, and then you do something like this, and a lot of that goodwill has now been taken away, and you now have to put in the effort to earn back trust. Um, it's and it's not. And another example, and I know that you think more highly of it, but it's just undeniable, is Rocksteady, right? And it's not, but in that instance, it's not Rocksteady's fault. It's WB's fault. Um, and so WB has put now Rocksteady in this weird thing where like people aren't blaming Rocksteady, they're blaming WB, and
yeah.
they see it in a way that like, oh, WB is kind of holding Rocksteady hostage because they're an incredible studio that can do incredible work if their publisher lets them do what they want to do, because they've done that 3 times in a row with the Arkham trilogies, and they're, in my opinion, still the definitive superhero games. I like Spider-Man PS4 and Spider-Man 2, but I do think that specifically Asylum and City are like better games than those. And And so like yeah, it's just one of those things where um there's always these different perspectives and examples as to like what causes that. Um but then you got the upside like Insomniac where like Insomniac will can probably make any game and you know it's going to be good. Like there's no reason to doubt Insomniac at this point.
Yeah, I do
And
have to say though, I have never played the Batman games from the Arkham series.
oh, you'd
I
love them.
have them on Steam. I just haven't dove into them yet, so I don't have an opinion on them.
Oh, you'd love them. I think you'd love them. I would play them in release though. Like even though Origins is a prequel, I would play them in release order. I think they're it would just kind of how you see the progression evolution of like gameplay and things like that. Um, but yeah, those games are great. I think you would really love them, especially if you like the Dark Knight and like the more kind of like just the more groundedness of it all because like Batman what's really great about the Batman games is that they really play into like the detective like he's the world's greatest detective, so there's a lot of like detective puzzles and like scanning fingerprints and like things like that that make him feel like a badass but also like the world's greatest detective. And like Arkham City is like a 10 out of 10 game. It still holds up incredibly. Yeah, no, you're good. It holds up incredibly well. It takes a lot of like some big narrative swings that I think pay off across the board. Yeah, you should that's definitely a series that I think you should prioritize if you haven't played them yet.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to actually put out a review of that because I know it's like late to the game, no pun intended, but it'll be an interesting one to see where people land in the discussion of how that review is and what I think of it. What are you playing right now, and what are you getting into that you can talk about that you're not like have an NDA attached to it?
What am I playing right now? I've been playing through the Dragon Quest series for the first time. I've not played any of them. So I think I started in 2023 and then I took like a pretty like notable break, but I'm currently on Dragon Quest 5, which is considered one of if not the best Dragon Quest game. And I've been really enjoying my time playing through those games. I've also been doing a series playthrough for Final Fantasy. As I've played most of them, but I haven't finished many of them, so I want to properly play through that series as well. I just started Final Fantasy 3, um, which I just started, so I don't have a whole lot to say on that one, but I've been enjoying that. I think Final Fantasy 2 is interesting because that is a game that like is widely considered like one of, if not the worst in the series, and I thought it was absolutely, I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. And but granted, also like I think because of they did like the whole pixel remaster, I think that game got like the best treatment of like kind of like quality of life improvements and things like that that made that game a little bit more digestible than previous versions. So that could admittedly be a thing, but I thought that game was really good, and I think it would be really cool if it got like a remake treatment because there's so many like cool moments that happened in that game, and a lot of like things that I don't see a lot in JRPGs that wish were in that genre more. That game particularly does. Um, and so yeah, that's been really great. And then I also just recently started playing through Chrono Trigger. Uh, yeah, and I never played Chrono Trigger despite my love for JRPGs. I have not played that game yet, and I'm doing that for our Campfire catalog, which is kind of like a book club podcast that we do for our patrons. Um, and so that is something I've been playing. I have like a Super NT, which is basically like there's this company called Analog that recreates like old hardware, but like makes it, modernizes it, basically modernizes it. And so the Super NT is basically their uh, Super Nintendo. And so I've been playing it like on that, and that's been a really cool experience. And Yeah, that's been the main stuff. I also recently played Split Fiction, and that game is absolutely incredible. I think that is as someone who did not play It Takes Two, I totally get why people love Haze Light and Yosef Fares now. And I think that is like a Game of the Year contender with a bullet. It's really, really good.
Yeah. So for me right now, what I'm diving into is playing Mass Effect 1. I actually just got up to the scene where we meet Garrus for the first time, and he already has my entire heart. Incredible
Nice.
character. He's like the Astarion of Mass Effect. And when, let's see, oh gosh, what was the other one that I'm diving into? Monster Hunter Wilds. It's my first Monster Hunter game that I've ever played. So far, it's interesting. I'm seeing so many different people comparing it to different Monster Hunters, and I'm like, I have no idea what anyone's talking about, but let's roll with it. What else am I doing? I'm playing like some more relaxing games because I know that I'm going to have to get into like a lot more reviews, so I want to take the time to just like play through some, personal cozy games. I'm personally like trying to go through and platinum Bloodborne. I'm 4 trophies away right now, so I'm pretty close. Let's see, what else? I'm playing Resident Evil 1 Remake, like for the 50 billionth time on my PC. I absolutely love that game. Let's see, and what was it? For videos, I'm doing some of like different build guides for Elden Ring, so I'm going back and doing some of those and everything. So that's currently what I'm working with right now.
Cool. Yeah, you're just playing a lot of games that I can't play because I have arachnophobia. So I'm like, oh, Resident Evil 1, can't play that. Oh, Bloodborne, can't play that. So that's actually one of the few things that I like kind of am hoping that Bloodborne gets a PC port, or so that like I can get an arachnophobia mod in there and then I can actually play that game. Because like again, I said I'm not super crazy about Souls like, but everyone says that Bloodborne is like the GOAT. Like, you know what I mean? And so I want to give Bloodborne a shot. Um but yeah, I'm like, nope, there's some big ass spiders in that game, and I can't fuck with that.
Yeah, no, they need to. I need to see if they have like a mod on PC for Resident Evil, because Resident Evil 1 Remake is just absolutely iconic. If they have a mod for it, then you'd probably be able to have a go at it. But yeah, like I'm the same way whenever it comes to. You're gonna think this is so fucked. Whenever it comes to like goats, I don't like goats at all
Okay.
whatsoever.
Okay. Okay. So you have a fear of goats?
I do. I have an irrational fear of goats.
What's scary about goats for you?
It's just the first of all, the eyes. But no, I don't
Okay.
like it. They're looking into my
Okay.
soul. And then second of all, it's just the way that right before they attack something and they ram into something, they stare at them, and it's just like I don't like the way they look. I don't. It's just something intimidating about a goat. I don't know what it is.
I shouldn't laugh because like being afraid of things is not funny, but that is definitely not what I expected. Like that is definitely an uncommon fear for
Like,
sure.
oh, tornadoes, spiders, heights. I can't stand heights. I can't stand like
Yeah,
the
I don't like
normal
heights.
person fears and everything, but just there's something weird about goats. Goats and mannequins. Mannequins can get the fuck away from me.
Mannequins, I've heard before. I've heard about mannequins. Yeah, that's funny because the first episode of Doctor Who, like the new Who, the bad guys are like uh mannequins. They're like, yeah, yeah.
I like the Weeping Angels. No.
Oh, they're so good though. So
It was a good
like, no,
episode.
Weeping Angels are scary, but like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
That was a good episode.
such a good villain.
That was the only episode of Doctor Who I ever saw.
I think the only thing that's more terrifying of a villain in Doctor Who are it's called the Vostra Narada, and it's basically think of like basically shadows that just eat all your flesh.
Wait a second. Okay, I'm inserting a picture here for people who don't know what Navastra, no, Navastra Nostrada. Wait, what? How do you say it again?
The Vostra Narada.
Navastra Narada. Okay, it sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
The Vostra Narada, yeah, that's what it's called. And there's actually not like really a picture of the Vostra Narada in a real way. It's just like a shadow. and like the shadows like move, and like when they attach to your shadow, they basically will like melt your flesh.
Jeez.
On the Doctor Who wiki, apparently in the episodes that they're in, the Doctor describes them as the piranhas of air.
Oh, that's creepy. That is so creepy.
It's in a two-parter. They're only in this two-parter, but it's so scary. It's so scary because you can't like have
Where's the image?
You can't have like any shadows like interact with each other, because if they do, like you're basically like dead. And then the thing that's interesting about it is that like all of the like outside of the Doctor and Donna, who's the companion, like everyone are basically in like these suits.
Yeah, so, like, wait, this one, right?
Yeah, so basically they go into the suit and they just like it's just their skeleton in there. But they can still control them. They still can move them.
That is so cool.
It's so cool.
Hideo Kojima needs to get on that.
It's really, really cool.
That is amazing. Okay, so that's actually giving me a reason to potentially watch Doctor Who, because I never got into it. Like, besides the Weeping Angels, I never got into Doctor Who.
You should 100% watch Doctor Who. It's like I will 100% admit, similar to Kingdom Hearts, which I love with my whole heart, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But like in the first, especially the first season, it's a little rough because it's a 2005 British show with a British budget. But like, if you can get past that first season and you can like get why like people love Doctor Who, and then you go back to that first season later, it'll be an easier watch the second time, if that makes sense. Because you kind of have to like understand like what it is that people love about Doctor Who, to like kind of be like, oh, I'm willing to watch like any Doctor Who because I like Doctor Who. I get the concept of it.
Right. And that's the same thing I would say similarly for the first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It doesn't start off very strong. Like, you have these very cheesy 90s moments, obviously, but you don't really get a sense of the story really until the end of the first towards the second season. And like, I'm a diehard Buffy fan. Like, when Michelle Trachtenberg died, I was not okay. you know?
Devastated.
Yeah, it was one of those things of where it's just like you don't expect your favorite actors to die, because it's like you were so close in age. Like, she was only 39 and I'm 32, so that was like, whoa, okay, that's weird. Okay, but you know, I have like all 7 seasons of the show. I watched it from the time I was a kid, and I know that people are like, oh, this is a cheesy 90s show. It's like, no, these are like your problems personified as like vampires and demons and all that kind of stuff, you know? It's like, you know, life issues personified as all of these creatures, which I think is pretty cool that the show does that. But one of the last questions I wanted to ask is, if you could pick a game to play for the next 5 to 6 years, anyone who says you have to play another game, no, you're stuck on one game, what is it?
I can only play one game ever. It's like 100% Kingdom Hearts 2, my favorite game of all time. Yeah, that's a game that I can consistently play over and over again, and it never gets old, and I think it's aged incredibly well. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I would have to say either Elden Ring or, oh god, I know there was one that is just escaping me right now.
Death Stranding?
No, because Death Stranding is one of those games of where it makes you so emotional. Like, it's just a one and done type game. I have not gone back to it after I played it for the first time.
Okay.
Dark Souls 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Either Elden Ring or Dark Souls 3, because Dark Souls 3, even though it was so fan servicey for the first game, it had so much in it that I love. Like, the Soul of Cinder as that boss, just chef's kiss. Absolutely love that one.
So I want to unpack something with you, because I kind of want to get like your perspective as someone who is a big Souls-like person. Like, what is it about Souls-likes that you really gravitate with?
So it's 2 things primarily. It's the difficulty of the game, and it's the lore and all of the history that Miyazaki and the team put into it. So first, you know, with the difficulty, the first Souls game I ever played, it was Dark Souls 1 Remastered, because I had done a commentary on how Elden 3 for my reaction video of the trailer at the time, before the game came out, was kind of a Witcher, but was shinier. Like it kind of looked like The Witcher 3. It kind of exhibited like the same feeling as what The Witcher 3 was. And for me, that was just like, oh, it has magic. It has this. It has that. You know, this just looks like, you know, it looks kind of boring. And one of my friends commented underneath, she was like, play Dark Souls 1 Remastered. You will not be sorry. Like, just try it, see if you like it, and then go from there. And at first, I absolutely hated my experience. I was like, this is a buggy nightmare. It's not letting me do any of the normal things I want to do. And I realized, I was like, oh my God, you have to play the way this game wants you to play. You can't just play like you would God of War Ragnarok. You know, you can't play this game like any other game, really. You have to go by its rules. So once I understood that, and once I had my clicking moment, which was around the Smo and Ornstein boss battle, it was, I kid you not, I know it's going to sound over dramatic, but it was life-changing for me, because it made me realize that I can do anything I set my mind to. And I was only playing like objectively easier games, not Dark Souls games, not difficult games. Like, I wasn't going into roguelites like Returnal or anything like that. I was just playing games that fit right into my comfort zone. And once I got out of that, I just wanted more of it. I needed more of that kind of challenge and everything. And then once I got to Artorias, which it's one of the DLC bosses, it's probably like one of the most iconic bosses. Insert picture here of Artorias. It's absolutely beautiful. It got to a point of where, like, that was when I fell in love with the story. And now to go into the lore, it was those things of where you unpack the lore and you unpack some of the history that Miyazaki and the dev team put into it, from like Egyptian history. You have Norse or Celtic mythology even put into this. You know, there's oh gosh, there's a wheel that a skeleton is attached to, and those are one of just the common enemies that you see, and it's like nothing special, right? But actually the wheel is known in history as the Catherine wheel. So Saint Catherine was put on that wheel, and she was supposed to die by her bones being broken on that wheel, and she was being stretched out. So that wheel is a part of history that they're implementing into the game. So there's so many different facets of the games, and that's why I just fell in love with them. And now it's literally like, I am by definition a Souls and Souls like content creator on my main channel besides reviews.
Hmm. It's so interesting to me, because like because I love challenging games. I really do. I guess it's just like, I don't like the way, I don't know if it's like, I don't like the way that the challenges are presented to me, or if the kind of lack of like the lack of like abilities of sorts that you get in Souls likes, that it just like, it just hasn't really grabbed me. And I've been trying like other like non FromSoft Souls likes. I actually like tried this one that there's a demo on Steam and PS5 right now. It comes out later this month. It's called AI Limit. And like, I couldn't really get into that. And that's like that is like very From Software type Souls like. And then like there's some other ones that I've been wanting to try, like Code Vein and stuff, but I haven't gotten to. But like, I love Sekiro, and the reason I love Sekiro is because like, it feels like that you're actually like fighting back with like the way like that you block and you parry, and like the posture system. It's just like, okay, this is giving me something, you know. And then like when you get those, and so like when you get those wins, like I felt so gratified in a way that the other Souls like games like don't really give me. Like when I beat like the have you played Sekiro?
Oh yeah, I finished it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
A phenomenal game.
Like when you fight like the monkey for the first time, and then you fight the monkey again with the second monkey, and I'm just like, the way that I like, because I streamed like a good chunk of that game, and the way that I like popped off when I beat some of those bosses was just so good. And I just like, oh, give me another Sekiro, give me another game just like that, and I will eat that shit up. But another thing that's interesting to me is that like, a lot of people that really like Souls likes are all like, you know, you're just saying, love the lore and love the history. But what's so frustrating to me, as for me personally, uh, this is not an objective thing. This is a subjective thing. Is that the same people that will like criticize like Kingdom Hearts and like how its narrative, even though it's like pretty like as long as you play the games in order, you can basically understand everything that's going on. They're like, oh, it's so convoluted. I'm like, y'all are having to look up YouTube videos. Y'all are having to like have people dedicate themselves to learn the lore of these worlds, and then you're just watching videos. And that's okay. Like that's okay to you, but not playing Kingdom Hearts in release order and like a normal. Because that's another thing that's like so bizarre to me. I'm not trying to make this a big Kingdom Hearts thing, but like people for some reason, people find it so hard of a concept to be like, yeah, you have to play Kingdom Hearts in the order that the games were released.
I would think that's logical, though.
I don't know what, Ariel. I don't know what it is, girl. I don't know what it is. But
I mean, I
people
would tell
are just
the
like,
same thing with Resident Evil. You play it in order, like.
Yeah, but like at least with, I mean, I know that there's an ongoing story in Resident Evil. I'm not trying to dismiss that, but like in Kingdom Hearts, it is necessary. It is required. It is crucial in a way that most other franchises are not. And so like when people say like, oh, I have to play them in release order, I'm like, yes, is that such a ridiculous thing? Like, and it's just such a bizarre, like it's such a bizarre thing that I will just like never understand. And I think it's just at this point, it's just been so many years over time that like it'll just always be the case. There will always be people being like, "Oh, I gotta play this series in release order. Why can't I play like start with it? Like why like you don't ask this about any other ongoing series. Why is Kingdom Hearts any different?" And so yeah, it's just one of those things where like people are so, to me, from my point of view, people are so just like hypocritical. They like they just like
yeah. There is a lot of hypocrisy in this whole franchise.
The hypocrisy of like, oh, like I can't wait to watch this 3-hour lore video on Elden Ring, and then it's just like, but you can't just play Kingdom Hearts and understand the story from just what's happening. Like I just don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah.
No, and you know what's interesting is that I understand, and this is coming from someone who has never played a Kingdom Hearts game before, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things of where, like, I always, when I was younger, I saw Kingdom Hearts, and I shit you not, I thought, oh, God, why would I want to play this? It looks too cute. And I think back on me saying that, and I'm like, Ariel, you dumb shit. So it's completely understandable, and the thing is that with Souls and Souls-likes, you know, it's interesting you put Sekiro as a Souls-like, because I think
it's an action game with Souls-like elements into
and it's
it.
Like, yeah, it's like, you know, people say amygdala instead of amygdala. I'm like, camera just decided to move. It understood my frustration. Like, I don't. Okay, move over there. Thank you. What are you doing exactly? Okay.
Is it auto adjusting?
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's cool.
Hey, it's Insta 360. It's AI function in camera.
Okay.
Now let me shut the camera off.
The AI is the AI ain't AI right now.
Yeah, right. I spent everything on Ollie. Okay. You are going to move right over here because I tell you to. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Listen, the New York is gonna come out, okay?
I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it come out. It
doesn't know what it's talking about. Okay, I have to maneuver it over.
I think you're gonna have to like just finish it out with like this.
Hold on, is it gonna? No, it's just acting. It's acting up. I don't know what's going on with it right now.
We've been recording for like 2 hours, no issues, and then it's just decides, let's just throw a little chaos into this podcast.
You are gonna
bring the jersey out. Bring the jersey out.
I swear to God. I swear to God. You guys, I tried to fix this camera before. I could not fix it. So if I go this way, it moves. Just magic camera. If I go this way, if I just stay like this very still, it just won't move at all. You guys can see the beautiful consoles in the back, though, by the way, which, always a great scene. But I do have to say, Cam, thank you so much for joining us on the episode of The Gamer's Respite. I really appreciate it. To get into the final topic of this evening, when you are playing a game, what is one thing that you look for in a game to let you know that it is going to be a banger for you?
Oh dang, that's hard. It I mean a game has to be fun to play at the end of the day, because if it's not, then like it just doesn't it just won't grab me. Like you can tell me like, oh, this story is like so incredible, blah 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 blah. But if it's not fun to play, I'm not saying like it has to be like an action game. I'm not saying it just needs to like be an enjoyable experience from its like moment to moment. Um, so like that's really important. But like I play a lot of video games, most video games to experience stories. I think that video games are a medium where like the way that stories are told can only be done in this way. And so like most of my favorite games of all time I love because of the stories and the characters. And then like the gameplay is normally also like incredible as well. And so um like a series that I recently like absolutely became obsessed with and fell in love with is called the Legend of Heroes series. It's like known as like Trails. And similar to like how you felt about Dark Souls 1, that was Trails for me, where I played those the first few games, and it has like ruined other games for me. It has like ruined other games for me in some ways, where like if a game is trying to do similar things that Trails does, I'm just like, why can't you just do this like Trails? And it's a niche series. It's gotten a little bit more popular over the past couple of years, but I think it's similar to you. I'm I'm only I'm only a little bit younger than you, and I never thought that. I came across the Trail series when I was 27, I believe, is when I started the series, and it's a super long running series. Like I think there's 3, 5, 10. There's 13 games in the series. 12 of them, yeah, 12 of them are in the like out in the US. One of them hasn't been localized yet. And it's basically kind of like, for those that know anime at all, it's kind of like the One Piece of video games, where it's like the super ongoing long story, but like they're split into different arcs, and each arc focuses on a new cast of characters with in a new location, but it's all connected. You can potentially depending on the game, there could be characters from older arcs that will come into play for certain reasons and stuff. And the world building and all of that stuff is just unmatched. There's nothing else like it. It's a series that I desperately want more people to play because it's just that good. It's one of those things where like, you want people to play the games that you love because you want them to also love it. And I think Trails is like, Kingdom Hearts will always be my goat, but like Trails is right there. Um and Yeah, just like the way that it builds its world, and like the care that it does to its characters. Like you'll get to like way later in the series, and there'll be a point where like there's over 50 characters you can play as, and all of their histories, all of their backgrounds, these characters all intimately, in a way that just I've just never experienced in video games before. It's a really incredible series. I actually, one of my tattoos is from the series, and then I met the creator last year at Anime Expo, and I asked if I could get his consent to tattoo his signature next to it, and I got a picture with him with it and everything, and like it's a series that like I just never thought I would find a new series that would just like I would fall in love with the way that Trails did. And it's for those that like don't listen to me on the regular, it may sound like a first time thing, but I'm a broken record about this series, both on my podcast and on social media, but it really is incredible. It's a really great series. The remake there's a remake of the first game coming out later this year. So like that I think that was like one of the biggest challenges of the series like in the US is that they weren't localized in release order. It was kind of like a little bit all over the place, unfortunately. But like now all of them are out. Like you can start from the beginning, which you should, and you can play through them in order. The first game is only like 30 hours, and yeah, it's like it's a very like easy like, hey, play this 30-hour game, and by the time you're done with it, if you are in, you're probably going to be in for the long haul. But if you're not, then you can just stop, and then you're like, this wasn't for me, and you can kind of just move on. But I've had a lot of people that I've gotten to convince to start playing that series, and they're like all in now. They're like one of my friends uh, in the journalism space. He just like caught. He's like just caught up. He's like been playing through these games over the past like couple 2 to 3 years, and he's just like, I'm so happy I did this. This is absolutely incredible, and it
Are
makes
they
me
on
so happy
Steam?
to see. Yeah, they're all on Steam.
I'm going over to Steam and looking it up. That way I can wishlist it to remind myself to get it. Let's go. That makes me so excited. I do have to say one last thing because now I have like all the questions that are coming immediately
Yes,
into my head.
please.
This is what happens whenever I film at the nighttime. This is my time of whenever I'm just like I have everything buzzing
Your
about.
brain's buzzing. No, I'm here to answer. Like, if you want to ask me Trails questions, I'm like ready. This is like what I dream for. Like, please.
So, like, what is it about the series that drew you in? Because I know that there's so many different kinds of reasons of why people play games immediately, but what was the reason that you started playing the series?
Well, I was recommended it by a buddy of mine, Scott White. He writes over at RPG Site, and he has a podcast called RPG University. And we worked at DualShockers together, and he was just like, "Cam, you really got to play Trails. Like, you're really gonna like this series." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll play it eventually." And I don't know what made me like decide to finally start it. Um, but I was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna play this." And yeah, and I was just obsessed. I think, again, like the things that I feel like when, as someone who likes a lot of JRPGs, and this isn't an issue with all, but it's an issue with most for me, where you play these games, and JRPGs are so like such a key part of JRPGs. The formula is like the world that you exist in, and things like that, and I just feel like for a lot of JRPGs that take place in like uh a fictional setting that isn't like like the Persona games, it's like, oh, this is like a fictional version of like an actual city. That's a little bit different. But like if you're in like this fantasy world or sci-fi, whatever it may be, and it's completely its own thing, it's not like inspired by anything. I feel like a lot of JRPGs fail to teach me more about the world I'm existing in. And like making me care about the world I'm existing in. And it's not a necessity. It's not a necessity for me, but it is it is a thing that makes some games fall short for me when I like reflect on it. It's just like, man, this was really good, this was really good, this was really good, but I wish I cared about the world more. And I think that a lot of, even though JRPGs are like longer, I feel like that, especially I think Final Fantasy in a lot of cases kind of fit under this criticism, is that like I wish the game was like 5 to 10 hours longer, and that 5 to 10 hours like specifically is about world building and making you care about the world and learning more about the world that you're in. Uh, because like I think that Final Fantasy VII does this really well, where like you are going across Gaia, the Earth or whatever, the planet, and like almost every location that you go to is crucial to one of the characters' backgrounds. And so you have that emotional tie-in to be like, oh, like uh Corel is like where Barrett is from, and Wutai is where Yuffie's from, and Niflheim is where Cloud and Tifa are from. Rocket Town is where Sid's from. You get all of these locations that are directly tied into a character, so that by the time you like go do all of these things around Gaia, you're like, I care about this world. I care about saving uh stopping Sephiroth from unleashing the meteor on the planet. Like, that is like a really great example of like, this game does this really well. But then I think that a lot of JRPGs don't do that well. Where like it's just like, oh, you kind of are just going on this journey, and then like, oh, there's a bad guy, and then you have to stop the bad guy, because like there are some instances where you just like don't engage with or don't know who the bad guy is until the very end of the game. And so it's just like, oh, okay, like, and I think in JRPGs where you have these more like structured stories compared to like Western RPGs where it's a lot more choice based, you don't like it's more of a criticism, because it's like, you are structuring this like that this is what everyone is going to experience no matter what, how they approach this game, that like I think there needs to be more effort put in that.
If only every game could be like Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is fantastic. And what Trails does so fucking well is that it just makes everything that you do in that game, everything that everything that the game like puts in front of you, like, you learn something about the world that you're existing in, or you learn about something about the characters. So like, I'm gonna just use the first arc as an example point. So basically, the main characters in the Sky trilogy, which is my favorite arc, I think the first arc is the best arc, is Estelle and Joshua, and their adoptive. Joshua is Estelle's adoptive brother, and their dad is basically. It's worth noting that their dad is like basically one of the most important people in the country, but in the sense of like, he used to be like the general, or like the second from the top of like the country they're from is called Liberl, the Liberalian military, and he decides at some point to retire and become a bracer, and a bracer is like a member of the Bracer Guild, which is like the logo of my tattoo here for those that are watching. And basically they are work for hire people. They're not mercenaries, because they don't just like try and kill things, but they are work for hires. So like, you have to be trained, you have to go through testing and stuff like that. You have to earn the ability to be a bracer. And so like, the very first thing basically in the game that you do is Estelle and Joshua become junior bracers. And they're now able to take bracer tasks, but they also have to become senior bracers, or like normal bracers. And to become a senior bracer, you have to get a letter of recommendation from every branch in the country. And so basically, their dad goes missing for reasons, and they're like, not in a serious way, but they're just like, oh, don't know where our dad is. We're gonna go around all of Liberl to figure out where he is, but also become senior bracers along the way. And so like, every town you go into, you have bracer requests. And these bracer requests can be as simple as like, hey, there's this giant monster on the road that needs to be taken care of. Or it can be as simple as, I need help organizing books at the library. And so it's a very varied type thing, but like, outside of like the monster, like the specifically, hey, just destroy this monster, all of the like other like quests that you do, and these are all side quests, these are all optional, but they're basically mandatory if you want what makes Trails so special. Um, you learn something about the town that you're in, or Liberl, or the world at large, and like it always is something additive. It always it respects your time. Like everything that you do, nothing feels like oh, that was a boring side quest that didn't really give me anything. It's just like you always learn something, and it's so good. And the party members as well, like when you get more and more party members, you also like get party members from like different countries that are like visiting for one reason or another. So you also get exposure to the other cultures of the different countries on this continent. So you get a taste of like Calvard, which is like this like very a lot of like kind of what we would consider like Chinese culture. Because like the member, he like the party member, he's like a bracer, but he's from Calvard, and he's kind of like a monk, I would say, like kind of, or he's like a Taito fighter type thing. Um, and then there's a traveling bard, Olivier, who I talked about earlier in the podcast. He is this traveling bard from Erebonia, and Erebonia is more of a like militarized empire type state. So like it really gives you like the exposure of learning about different parts of the world while interacting with these characters.
It's really fascinating, actually. Like, it's making me
it's
looking forward to playing the game so much.
It's so good, and on top of that, it's just really well written. It's really funny. Like I don't really laugh out loud playing video games. I do when I play Trails a lot of the time.
The way that you talk about Trails, it reminds me so much of Dragon Age Inquisition. Like,
Okay.
the side quests of Inquisition were some of the most fun I've had in any side. Like, I'm not a side quest person. It has to be, like, really special to grab my attention. And there wasn't a side quest that I didn't enjoy in Inquisition. So it really heavily reminds me of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think you haven't played any of the Yakuza games.
No, I have two of them, actually. I have Zero, and I have oh my gosh, what's the other one? I have one other one, but I know I have two of them.
That's fine. RGG, the developer of the Yakuza games, does a very similar thing that Falcom does with Trails, and they're really great about reusing assets. So like, in Trails, you do Trails in the Sky, you go through Liberl, you go through all of that story, and then you get to second chapter, and you're more or less doing it again, but it does a really great job of advancing time and like making feel like time has passed, so that like you will, because you'll transfer your save over, and so like you'll do like a side quest, and then you'll do another side, like in the first game, you'll do another side quest in the second game, and the person will be like, oh yeah, like Estelle, like, yeah, thanks for helping me out last time, I need your help again, and like, and they remember like, oh, like you helped me do this like type thing. And just again, just the way that it makes time feel like it's past, and just the world building, learning more. And because like, yeah, again, like all of these countries have like different government structures. Like Liberl is a monarchy. There's a Erebonia has like a militarized state where there is like a king and a queen, but like the government is really run by a chancellor, and like that's voted on by the people. Like, so kind of like England. And then like yeah, and then Calvard is just a republic. So there's all these different government structures and history. Oh, like honestly, like the thing that's like really great, and like I've come to learn from like some of my favorite mediums of stories, is like politics. Like there's a lot of politics in Trails. And because like my favorite anime is Naruto, and like you can say like, oh, Naruto's a shonen, it's like an action anime, but really at the end of the day, it's a political, it's very political. And that is like the big kind of like aspects of the story that I love, is like learning about like the history of like oh, the Hidden Leaf Village and like all the political conspiracies and like that's like how it is in Trails. Is like you learn like all this stuff about um how because the game feels really grounded until it's not, but like a lot of the time it feels really grounded. And the reason why I like the Sky game specifically is because like outside of like Estelle's dad being an important person, these are like more or less just people just doing random stuff. Like they don't feel like that they play a huge part in anything for like a lot of the game. Um and it just feels like very grounded in that sense. And I really, really like the kind of like the innocence of that, of just like going around this country that feels very it does give like medieval vibes, kind of just based off of like the character designs and the general vibes of it all. But um yeah, it's really, really great. Music is fantastic.
Oh, JRPGs always have fantastic music.
Yeah, music is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, it just checks all the boxes. And then like when you realize like how it plays into the bigger picture of like the overarching series, it really is just like a wow. Like I'm about to experience a one of a kind type thing because there's really nothing else like Trails in video games. Um,
You see, that was
and
actually
so
going to
yeah.
lead into something else I was going to ask if you could recommend any game for someone to play for the first time, and I'm guessing that's one that you would recommend for people to play for the first time.
Yeah, because this thing that's kind of nice is that like with Trails is that yeah you need to start from the beginning and the first game holds up really really well. Like yeah it's getting a remake, but you can play that first game that's on Steam right now, and it's really great because I've had a lot of people reach out to me since that remake came and like hey should I wait for the remake or should I just play the original? And I'm like if you were to ask me, I would just play the original because if you do really like it, then you got the remake after, which you're gonna just enjoy even more. So like, why not just start with the beginning? But also there is like an art direction aspect of the original trilogy that is just so charming. I think adds to the identity of Liberl and the Sky games that like it's really really special. I really wish I could experience like that series. Like if you could just like let me wipe it from my brain and
Just
let me
experience it
experience it
again.
100%. And like outside of Kingdom Hearts and like maybe in like Mass Effect, like there's no other series that I would want that or felt like the need for that. Because like even when I caught up to the series, when I finished the most recent game at that point was Reverie, which was a couple of years ago. I was like, man, what if I just play through them again? Like, what if I just boot up Trails in the Sky and just experience all of that again because it's just so good. It really has just ruined other other games for me in a significant way. And I like I don't like to be I don't like being the guy that always talks about Kingdom Hearts and Trails, but I also feel like that in trail sense, like there's just no one knows about it, and so I just gotta like inform people, like, hey, this exists, and this is why you need to play it. And then Kingdom Hearts is just like, oh, Kingdom Hearts gets a bad rap because of just misinformation and people not, actually playing those games. Yeah, and playing those games and being like, yo, this is like actually really good. Because I have had people that like thought that Kingdom Hearts was stupid for this, that, and the other, and then they actually like gave it a shot, and they're like, I was wrong. I was wrong, and it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's so
And I'm not
interesting
saying,
to me too, because like whenever I hear about Kingdom Hearts now, I hear how they're upping the ante on the story and they're doing a lot of really great work with it. And it's one game series that's like, if I had the time, I would personally like go and actually try to experience it myself. You
yeah,
know?
and that's the thing too is that like similar to Trails, which it's intimidating. It's 100% intimidating to be like, hey, you should really play this 13 entry ongoing series. Um, but also like you can take your time with it. You don't have to feel the need that you have to play every game back to back to back to back to back. You can if you want, but even for me, I took breaks, and I still caught up to the 10th game in the series, I believe. Yeah, it was the 10th game in the series at the time. I caught up I played through those 10 games in like a little over 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Like,
Okay. Wow.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, some games are definitely longer than others, but some are also like, again, 30 to 40, like, hour long games.
Mhm. And in
Uh,
nowadays instance, that's nothing in comparison to like, Valhalla.
yeah, and also like those games are split up in arcs, and I think that, play an arc. And if you like the first game, finish the arc and then take a break. Then play the next arc, which is 2 games. Then take a break. Like, there are ways to go about it that you don't have to doesn't have to make you feel intimidated by to to actually see those games through. Cuz like, again, I have not given I've not had anyone that played those games off my recommendation that aren't all in at this point.
You've
They're not
corrupted
like,
so many people.
they're not like that they're not everyone is like, I need to play these games like right now, but they're like, I do want to see the series through and I do want to play through these games. And so I just think that, yeah, I think it's a series that easily is worth playing your time. Like, I know I'm hyping this up like it's like one of the best things ever, and it's because it is. It's like, it genuinely is. And I think that, and I know that like people can get burned by people praising things and then not meeting their expectations. But this is not that. This is actually like, you are going to experience some of the best storytelling, world building in video games, and like, that's like kind of the thing that's interesting about being a JRPG guy, is that like all these mainstream games are being told about like, oh, the story is so good. I'm just like, y'all just need to play more JRPGs because there are definitely better stories than that. You just got to find them. Uh, and so yeah,
I really like that a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk about that because it's not so often that you just see a lot of people just submit to the excitement of a game. I feel like and this isn't a bad thing, and I don't want people to think that I'm criticizing professionalism. I'm not. But there are so many times of where people they feel like they just have to stay professional and they don't want to just like let the geek out a little bit,
yeah,
And it's perfectly fine to just let yourself just be happy and excited. And I like the way that you're excited about the series. It's the same way that I feel about like all 3 of the Dark Souls games. Like, I will die on the hill of saying that they're absolutely incredible games, and it's so cool because that's why there's so many different tastes and so many different genres for people to sink their teeth into.
yeah, absolutely. It's because, I love JRPGs, but I also love many other games, and there's many other really great games that aren't JRPGs that deserve more love as well. And yeah, it's just like, you if you want a game to be successful, like, you are the one that has to talk about it. So you can't just assume other people will do it for you.
Yeah. And I think to leave it off on a cozy note, I'm curious if you were to go right now and just relax and just chill and be like, I'm going to take the rest of the night off, I'm going to fall asleep, I'm going to play a cozy game. What is your personal cozy game that you always go back to and you just relax to, whether it be handhelds, console, PC, whichever?
Cozy game. I'm not a big cozy game guy, to be honest. But like a game that I'll always go back to if I'm just like kind of itching to play something that I can always go back to. I play Overwatch like every day. I love Overwatch. I'm one of those weird people that like have been playing Overwatch 2 since the beginning. I finished every battle pass. Like, I love Overwatch, and
Who's your
I don't think
main?
I'll ever stop loving Overwatch.
Who's your main? I need to know.
It depends. Tank, I run Ryan and Zarya. Uh, DPS, I run Ashe and Pharah. Soldier too, if I need to. And then support, I play most supports really. Like, Mercy's my main, but like, I like Iari, I like Kiriko, I like Lifeweaver, I like Baptiste. I want to do more with Brigitte, but I think she needs a pretty notable shield buff. Her shield just goes out too fast. I want to get better with Ana. I love playing support, and I think support is like my best role in hero shooters, which sucks because I do like to play other like I like playing support, but I like playing all the roles. And so like when it's just one of those things where you play because I play Marvel Rivals as well. It's like, oh, no one wants to play support. I'm like, well, I guess I'll play support because I want us to win. So you know what I mean. Uh, so I love Overwatch. Again, I said it earlier, but Dead Cells is definitely a game I'll go back to. And also just hopping into Smash Bros and just playing some games against some computer fights and just turn my brain off a bit.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, whenever you're talking about Overwatch, I always have to, give a shout out to Widowmaker because she's my main. Widowmaker and Reaper.
I hate that. Oh, I really hate that. No, dog. I hate Widow and Reaper. You opened a can of worms here. So Reaper, since day one, since fucking day one, Reaper puts an anger in me that no other game gives me. Cause like that fucking character is so frustrating to play against. And I think it's just because like a lot of my characters that I play as are just like he counters. And it's just so frustrating where it's just like, oh, I'm playing Ashe, which is like, mid long range like shooter character, and then Reaper just comes behind and starts shooting me, and I'm like, I'm dead. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. And then yeah, and then his ult is just like so annoying, and then he can just phase and just like be like, oh, get out of jail free card. It's just like the design of him just feels so unfair. It's just like, okay, I do a lot of damage. I can phase out in case I mess up if I overextend or something. And then my ult is just like it is admittedly easy to stop, but it's still also like if it catches you on the right time, it's just I hate Reaper. I hate Reaper.
Cam, get good.
I know, no, that is the answer. I need to get good. But I hate Reaper, and then Widow's just annoying. Come on, like Widow's annoying. You're just like, oh, I'm just gonna snipe. No one can hit me. Like, no, I hate
That is
it.
any role that I take in a shooter game. I am the sniper.
Yeah, I was worried that Black Widow was going to be a problem in Marvel Rivals. Thankfully, she is not. But Widow is very annoying. I don't. The only time I don't find Widow annoying is when I play tank because I'm just like, I'm Reinhardt. I got big shield. What are you gonna do about that?
It's so fun because I've been playing since day one, since Overwatch started.
Yeah.
The only time that I stopped was when Blizzard was going through their chaos with their just everything that was going on. And I stopped out of respect for the employees, and then I started up again during the beginning of season, like I think beginning or middle of season 2. And I noticed that every single time that I would log in and I would start inside like the group, like waiting for it to start, everyone was invisible, and there was an annoying bug in the game of where you could not see any single enemy or character on your team.
Huh.
And
That's
I went
crazy.
through and I thought, this is weird. And every single session that I would play for about a week had that issue. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna wait for them to fix the bug. So I'm thinking you're now starting to convince me to hop back onto Overwatch and see if they fixed it at all.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love Overwatch. I love it. So
You'll have to give me your username. That way we can, I can be an annoying sniper on your team.
I'm down. I'm down.
But I would have to say my personal cozy game, if I'm ever just going to sit down and relax, it's either going to be Cozy Grove, which is an adorable game where you play as like a little scout and you're helping the spirits of the forest pass on. They're like bear spirits, and it's so adorable. It's so relaxing. That one, and I have to give a huge shout out to Diablo 4. Like, Diablo 4 is by far one of my favorite games ever made.
I have not. Well, I played a little bit of Diablo 4. Again, can't play a lot of it because spiders and stuff like that. But like, that's the thing. Like, if Diablo didn't have spiders, that is a game I would fuck with heavy. I would play that game a lot. I like what I got out of that game. So I can't blame you there.
Yeah, I mean, Diablo 4, I think the reason why I really loved it so much was because of the story and the cutscenes. When I first saw the cutscenes of Diablo 4, I was blown away. Like, especially there's one cutscene towards the very end of the game. And this one, I don't think I'll have to double check if it has spiders or not. If it doesn't, I will send it to you to watch because it is phenomenal. Cam, when I tell you this is some of the best voice acting and camera work I've seen in a game ever, like just point blank period ever. Besides Death Stranding, this is incredible work that they did. And Lilith as a character was done so well. So well. Oh my god. And I sit down and I have it on PC and for PS5. And what I love that they did was when you leave it off on PS5 and you have that same version on PC, you play exactly where you left off on PS5 on PC. And it's so good. I love that they did
the cross
that.
progression. Yeah, cross progression is really. That's like that just has to be a thing for all live service games moving forward. I just think it's unacceptable at this point. Like you just need to have that in your game.
But I do have to say, Cam, that was a wonderful time. We spent almost, 3 hours talking about literally movies, fashion, Pokemon, games, game journalism. We were talking literally about everything under the sun. It was an absolute joy to have you here. Thank you so much for being on this episode of The Gamer's Respite.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great time, and always willing to come back whenever you need me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome here. And if you guys liked our faces and what we do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below if you want good luck to bestowed upon this camera to actually work right now, which is crazy. But I hope you all had a wonderful evening, a wonderful time watching this episode. May your coffee treat you well and life give you a nat 20. I will see you all in the next one. Bye.